Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto joins the new Gotei 13 Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Traban16 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Enter Kishi and Kubo. Damn you brats. Iruka's voice rang out with fury as he shouted after the four blurs disappearing over the academy wall. Those four had an hour of detention left to serve and they had gotten away thanks to an idiotic prank he fallen for. If he weren't wet from the bucket of water, Iruka might have spontaneously combusted from the rage he felt right then and there. Naruto led the escape with a wide unabashed grin on his face. Iruka, beloved as he was, happened to be a little too trusting to Naruto's ways, even after a few years under his belt of dealing with a loudmouth blonde-haired troublemaker. In the span of only 30 seconds, Naruto had set up a bucket of freezing cold water over the slightest crack in the door Iruka had exited from to see who had knocked. Iruka just wished Naruto could use his impressive mind and skills for something other than making others miserable with his childish behavior. The pranks were always something of a conversation starter in the village, but now it was just getting out of hand with how focused Naruto was on planning his next move rather than studying for his next test or training for their next physical exam. If the blue-eyed boy could only put that sort of motivation behind becoming the impressive ninja he thought he was, then Iruka would have gladly been the first under the bucket for a good laugh. Right at Naruto's heels was Kiba. The boy ran for all he was worth with his dog Akamaru tucked safely into his jacket. Always a glutton for punishment that one, Iruka thought to himself with a shake of his head as his fury deflated. If there was something sneaky to happen, Kiba wouldn't be caught too far away if he were in on it. He liked to be a part of the gang. Or rather, a part of the pack as his clan of dog-oriented ninja would have put it. Running with Naruto was simply a bad choice, but one that Iruka could see Kiba making every time the choice was presented. Kiba was rough around the edges, incapable of being as calm as a normal ninja was supposed to be. So he got in where he fit in, and Naruto welcomed him with abrasively opened arms. Lagging behind the two balls of abundant energy were Choji and Shikamaru. Truer friends could not be asked for, nor could they be granted as Choji and Shikamaru were the apex. Choji was honest and true, a boy of strong integrity without even knowing it. Iruka had never seen a mean bone in the plump boy's body. Well, other than the anger he displayed whenever someone called him fat. And that anger only made him want to eat more. It was a vicious cycle, Iruka knew, but one that his clan and parents assured Iruka was not an actual problem within the context of their family. Choji was simply a peach to have around, always treating people, even Naruto, with great respect. Iruka admired the young Akimichi's approachableness, something even he as an academy teacher didn't have so cultivated yet despite trying. Choji simply was a gentle caring soul that everyone saw, but no one treaded upon. That was not to say he was unfit to become a ninja. In fact, Iruka believed they needed more ninja like Choji to foster openness and kindness with the civilian clientele that came to the village for missions. And bringing up the rear was the ever laid-back Shikamaru. Iruka would have shaken his head again if not for the fact that he knew Shikamaru had the aptitude for shinobi work. He might have been lazy, but the Naruto child was startlingly sharp. His analytical skills were the highest among the class. Iruka had once given the boy an intelligence test under the guise of a puzzle. After finishing the puzzle in 5 minutes flat, a display of intellect that honestly scared Iruka. Shikamaru had grumbled about how troublesome it was for him to be tested with such weak material. The boy had known about the test, taken it, and made Iruka look idiotic with as little effort as he could muster, but was still dissatisfied with the whole affair because he had to expend energy on something he didn't care about in the least. In fact, Shikamaru spent more time trying to avoid tests and spars than anyone else. He could usually talk his way out of them or at least stall until time had run out. If it weren't such a good tactic for a shinobi to develop, Iruka was sure the boy would have flunked out of classes by now as his grades were almost as abysmal as Naruto's own. If I ever get my hands on you, Iruka shook his fist out the window the four students had jumped out from, I'll be sure to give you brats a good thrashing. Naruto grinned to himself. He knew Iruka-sensei would never actually chase after them. He was a lot of things, but a strict disciplinarian the man was not. Iruka was kind and stern, but never overbearingly severe. It was one of the reasons Naruto even paid as much attention to Iruka as he did in the first place. He gave Iruka's words much more regard and attentiveness than anyone else's in the whole village, even more than the Hokage's speeches to him about shinobi ethnic or whatever. Iruka actually cared about him as a person, while the Hokage seemed to only care whenever Naruto became a problem. True, he was there whenever Naruto succeeded as well, but Iruka was always there. Not just for the wins and losses. He won't be catching us, Dadabeo. Naruto declared proudly, because if any of them knew Iruka best, it was him. We can stop running once we reach the market street. HMPH, Kiba huffed, not looking winded in the least, I can go on like this forever. Well, I don't want to, Shikamaru grouched from the back of the group. And Choji nodded his agreement, starting to get a little pink in the cheeks from the dead sprint they were running. Ah, you guys are no fun. Kiba threw back, but grinned as he saw Shikamaru roll his eyes. I bet we can find some tasty things in the market today. Choji lent his opinion to the conversation. Is all you think about only food, Choji? Naruto asked, despite knowing the answer he would get. I sometimes think about my schoolwork. Not exactly what Naruto thought he would say, but pretty close nonetheless. Speaking of schoolwork, Shikamaru was back to griping. Naruto kind of wished he had selective hearing at times like these, my mom's on my back about reading more books and getting familiar with Nara clan history. My mom is like that, too. Kiba said, throwing his hands into the air while Akamaru yipped to show his own agreement, she wants my written scores to go up. Says that my penmanship looks like crap. I have a feeling your mom said a worse word than crap, Dadabeo Naruto mumbled just loud enough for his friends to hear. They had reached the market district and everywhere was crowded with vendors and people. Food, books, weapons, and tools were all on display for anyone to buy at costly prices. She did, Kiba rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly as he recalled the rather frank talking to he had received the other day, and a lot of other choice words I can't repeat on the street. My parents aren't up in arms about my grades, Choji contributed, eyeing a vendor who was selling exotic peppers, but they aren't exactly thrilled either. They say I can stand to do better. Ugh, yeah. Naruto ran a hand through his messy blonde hair, but with Ino and Sasuke and Sakura and Shino around, we'll never be top of the class. Shika here probably can, but he's just a lazy bum. True, Shikamaru didn't deny Naruto's words, because the blonde would make him put more effort into it than simply agreeing, but you can start by watching your grammar. Boy, my grammar is perfectly functional, Dadabeo. I just hope you don't write that verbal tick on your exams as well as all your wrong answers. Naruto's face contorted in agitation. He balled up his fists, ready for a tussle with his friend, even if he knew Shikamaru would find some way around the fighting aspect. It was his thing to avoid physical conflict while battering his enemies with verbal barbs. It kept him from wasting effort and still allowed him to win in a way that mattered to most. Sad to say, but Naruto knew Shikamaru was too smart for him. That was why he had already put a thin layer of itching powder in the Nara boy's bed already. Well, Shika, Choji said, stepping between Naruto and Shikamaru and lowering the blonde's fists. Naruto had stopped the group completely as he was ready to brawl on the street in front of everyone around. If you want your mom to stop harping on you, maybe you shouldn't turn in the tests with the only marks on them being your drool stains. It was a joke, but also not too far off from the truth. Shikamaru did have a habit of sleeping in class when he felt it wasn't worth his time. This was the exact opposite of Naruto, who fled class and did pranks whenever he didn't feel like being there. Shikamaru, despite the joke, simply shrugged. It's much too troublesome for me to put forth any real effort. If I am gonna be a ninja, it will happen of its own accord. Kiba, next to him, gulped as he thought of his mother's reaction to such words. My mom would beat me black and blue if she thought I wasn't gonna pass the academy. Naruto looked more aggravated than ever now. If only I could do the stupid clone technique, then I'd already be a ninja and well on my way to becoming Hokage. Instead, I'm held back and forced to spend my time with you chumps. Except you, Choji. You rock, Dadabeo. Kiba knew Naruto was only kidding around, but it still ticked him off. Naruto had been given 2 chances now to move on from the academy level, and Kiba had not been offered even one, despite them practically being on the same level. When he had asked his mom about it, all she had done was laugh and snort milk all over the place while guffawing stuff about some woman named Kushina. Well, Kiba started, smirking at Naruto with his hands on his hips, maybe this chump thinks you're not cut out to be a ninja. Just face it, you'll never be able to pass the final exam. You're an idiot, and only people who use their brain for more than finding ramen can become actual ninja. Why you dog-faced mutt, Naruto growled under breath, even as Akamaru barked his offense to being compared to Kiba. Naruto could understand why. Kiba had a face only a mother could love. Naruto shoved Kiba hard. The boy stumbled, but then struck back with an elbow to Naruto's gut. Naruto bent inward, a bit of wind knocked from his lungs, but not enough apparently as he punched Kiba in the face. Kiba went back, knocking into a fruit stand that was put together a little too shabbily. It tumbled into a heap with all the fresh fruit littering the ground. Kiba was still standing with both him and Naruto staring at the scene before them. The owner of the stand was just noticing the damage they had done as Shikamaru and Choji stirred the two away from the crowded street while everyone's attention was on pilfering the fallen fruit. Even Choji had snagged him a few apples and pears, hastily stuffing them into his once empty kunai pouch. I'll never forgive you too. Choji moaned dramatically, a tear in his eye as he looked back at all the fallen fruit. Your blatant disrespect of food has gone too far this time. You know how my clan prides itself on munchies. Shikamaru, seeing that they were about to pass the local bookstore, gestured for his friends to follow him inside. When Naruto and Kiba got in, they wasted no time in asking the question he knew their simple minds would form. The heck are we doing in here, Tobeo? It seemed Naruto was thinking quicker than Kiba today. That meant the blonde was most likely up to something. Probably putting itching powder in his next set of clothes again. Shikamaru would be sure that when he got home, he'd have his mom rewash all his sets of clothes just in case. Probably have his underwear washed again, too, as an extra precaution. Yeah, why are we here? Kiba nodded, speaking in the same hushed tone Naruto did, seeing as there were people inside the store who were already looking at them curiously. It was probably because Naruto had pranked them at one point or another. Guy got around town with his kind of hobby. Shikamaru didn't turn to them, even as he perused through a section of books in the aisle they had come in on. It's because I wanted you two loudmouths to be quiet for a change. Hey, Naruto started, looking vaguely curious, I have another question. Why is this place called Kishi and Kubo? Oh. Kiba exclaimed, raising his hand as though they were still in class, I know this one. Shikamaru massaged his temples as he could swear Naruto and Kiba were doing things just to annoy him. Choji seemed to understand, placing a hand on Shikamaru's shoulder in a gesture of comfort. Troublesome friends, the two morons were, but Shikamaru simply couldn't picture life without them. This place is called Kishi and Kubo because the two men were very popular riders a long time ago. Kiba explained, sounding supremely smug about knowing something Naruto had no knowledge about. Years ago, the two riders wanted to share their love of books with the world, so they used their own wealth to build bookstores in every major village and trade town. Naruto looked skeptical of the idea, then why didn't they just put their books in library, Databeo? Shikamaru and Choji turned back to help Kiba give Naruto the deadpan look such a question deserved. Naruto, don't be stupid. Shikamaru shook his head, you can't honestly believe that fantasy and fiction belong in a library. People go to the library for serious research and study, not to lounge around reading comic books all day. Kiba's grin threatened to split his face in two. Yeah, you dope. And have you ever been to a library? Kiba looked down his nose at Naruto, but since they were currently about the same height, it was incredibly hard. Or do you just get strange headaches walking past the one in the academy? Naruto felt the blood in his ears as his face contorted with rage. He knew he wasn't the sharpest kunai in the pouch, but he wasn't a complete idiot despite what others went around saying. He made furious moves toward Kiba, tackling the boy into the bookshelf behind them as he punched him across the face. Kiba would forgive him later, but for now Naruto was gonna get in his shots while he could. Kiba was also fighting back, his fists burying themselves in Naruto's stomach and chest, while Naruto himself went straight for the face. He and Kiba were good friends despite their almost constant bickering and brawling. It was just the way they were. They had no other outlets for their frustrations other than fighting. And who better to fight than someone you could go have ramen with the very next minute. Kiba's mom would be proud of any bruises and black eyes he went home with, seeing them as a sign of him not being a wimp who backed down from a fist fight. She'd clap him on the back and ask who he fought. He'd tell her it was Naruto, and then she'd boom her great laughter and ask if he got in any good shots. The two would bond over the ruffling of fur, and then they'd have dinner after getting Kiba cleaned up. No one would care about Naruto's injuries except maybe Iruka, who would chalk it up to Naruto's punk attitude. He'd give Naruto some first aid stuff, but Naruto would be sent to bandage his own wounds like a ninja was supposed to. The whole issue wouldn't even be talked about until they went for ramen some time later, where Iruka would talk about whatever bothered him throughout the week. Shikamaru sighed heavily as the bookshelf went tumbling over with a resounding crash. All eyes in the store were now on the two idiots who were rolling around on the floor, trying their damnedest to make Shikamaru's life as difficult as possible today. First a fruit stand, and now they were pulling this crap. Although, if Shikamaru were to be fair, Kiba had kind of pushed Naruto too far with that last comment. They all knew that one of Naruto's most sensitive buttons was how people perceived him, especially in regards to his intellect. Naruto was a lot smarter than most people thought, but he wanted them to see him the way he saw himself. His pranks and general disrespectful nature didn't help in any way, but Naruto was convinced that if people didn't see him as an awesome ninja, they would see him as an amazing prankster. Shikamaru didn't understand Naruto's obsession with garnering attention, but so long as his friend continued to go out of his way to do the outlandish, then no one would ask Shikamaru to do it himself. Hey, you brats. Cut that out. You're tearing apart my store. Shikamaru jumped and so did Choji, both so consumed with their friends throwing punches at each other that they failed to pay attention to the manager sneaking up on them. The next moment saw the man move past Shikamaru and Choji as he grabbed Naruto and Kiba by their collars, pulling them apart. He glared at one, then the other. They had destroyed the shelf with all the newest comics on it and it would take all day to get it put back together. His whole schedule would be thrown off track. Out. He shouted the one word, and without another thing said the man opened the door to his store. First he tossed Naruto out on the street before doing the same to Kiba, who landed squarely on Naruto. Shikamaru and Choji quickly followed, both indignant that they had been thrown on the street when they hadn't done anything at all. All of you little terrors are banned from this store. If I catch any of you brats snooping around here again, I'll tan your hides. How dare you, man? Kiba yelled in outrage. My name is Kiba Inuzuka, son of Tsume Inuzuka of the Inuzuka clan. You can't just treat me any kind of way. Yeah, Dadabeo. Naruto agreed, and I'm Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage of the village. Show some respect. I don't care if you're the king and queen of England. The store manager snapped back, drawing attention to himself and the scene in front his store. You come near here again, even the 5 great daimyo wouldn't be able to save you. People were now paying attention as whispers went out from person to person. They were all watching the scene unfold now, and a sudden smirk appeared on Naruto's face. After all, a real ninja knew when to use tact and cunning to turn a situation to their own advantage. Kiba must have caught on to the idea as well, as he saw Naruto's grin and gained one of his own. In unison they both reddened their faces and strained their eyes in order to make them produce fake tears. Naruto hiccuped once, mustering all the proper emotions he could while keeping his wits about him. This would be a great prank for the day, and he even had Kiba's help along with it. Naruto hiccuped again, the tears now spilling down onto his cheeks. The store manager seemed shocked at the act in front of him, and so did the crowd now gathered around the store to see what was going on. A great collective gasp went through the crowd as the 2 young ninja students cried out loud and began to wail like newborn babes. The store manager was left standing in front of his store, looking utterly confused. He was staring, apparently terrified, at the disapproving stares of the crowded adults that were now fully involved in the situation. No, please don't ban us, sir. Naruto shrieked, his young body trembling like a starved calf. No, please. We were only trying to read, sir. Please let us read. Please, sir, please. Kiba wailed, thick tears falling from his face as he crawled forward, on his knees, to plead with the man. This is the only bookstore in the village my mommy lets me visit with my friends. Please don't stop us from reading the book, sir. We'll do anything. I can't believe what I'm seeing here. A high girlish voice came from the crowd, sounding horrified. Shikamaru and Choji looked at one another before they too put on their best crybaby faces. I can't believe a store manager could be so incapable of showing kindness to children, another voice muttered aloud, and several folks in the crowd shook their heads. They were breaking stuff the storeman offered weakly, unnerved by the amount of attention he suddenly found himself and his actions under. They broke a bookcase. We were only trying to reach the really nice books on the high shelf. Naruto cried, this time blubbering as though he were 5 again. We didn't mean to break it. It was just so tall. Oh yeah, play on the fact that they weren't just kids, but short kids at that. True, he wasn't too short from what he was supposed to be at the age of 8, but it was still noticeable. You can't do that to kids. That had to be a mother who howled at the back of the crowd, shoving her way forward to make herself known. By now all 4 of the boys were together, Shikamaru and Choji standing while Naruto and Kiba were still on the ground. All of them with tears streaming down their faces. The crowd watched as Naruto, the amazing actor that he was, sunk further onto the ground as he began sobbing uncontrollably into the dirt. He shuddered and moaned, rocking backward and forward on his knees in paroxysms of grief. The mother from before had broken away from the spectators, marched straight up to the child, and after a moment's hesitation, held Naruto in her arms despite her expression of disgust. Instead she directed it to the store manager, who was looking as white as a ghost in that moment. The people hated him more than the fox brat right then. How could that even be? The mother patted Naruto firmly on his back while withdrawing a large handkerchief from within her robes. There, son, calm down, blow your nose on this, it's not as bad as you think. She made a disgusted sound in the back of her throat as the crowd shared her glare on the man they now hated. We can always find better stores for you boys to read in. This simply was not happening. He was gonna be fired. These brats were going to get him fired. Yeah, another woman from the crowd agreed, if the kids want to better themselves by reading, especially the blonde brat. Naruto felt offended by that comment, but let it slide as the mother gripped him tightly, then who are you to stop them? They were only trying to read some comics from your crappy store. Shame on you, sir. The others in the crowd nodded and began voicing their agreement. This was bad. No, this was beyond bad. This was a nightmare. The storeman stepped backward looking to the crowd for any support, any witnesses to the boys breaking up his store. There were none. He looked around, completely lost. He staggered back into the door of his store, thoroughly bewildered by how the whole affair had shifted on him so suddenly and largely. There was only one way to save himself now. One moment, he muttered in a tiny voice, and in a moment, had disappeared into the store only to reappear with a large box which he promptly threw at the feet of Naruto and the mother holding him. The woman leapt to her feet as the box hit the ground, dropping Naruto and making him fall back into the dirt. Seeing, however, that it was just a box, the woman collected herself and began brushing the dirt from her robes. "Perhaps I was a bit too hasty," the store manager admitted despite how much he didn't want to. "Please, boys, take this box of books as a token of my apology. And you're welcome to it. Free of charge, as well. Just be more careful in the store next time, please." But that taken care of, the store manager slipped back inside his business and changed his sign from open to closed faster than Naruto could have said, "Databeo." This left the crowd to attend to the four boys, all of whom were drying their tears and looking as though they had been consulted by the box in front of them. "What did think is inside it?" one of the men at the front of the crowd asked, to which the man next to him shrugged with a hapless expression on his face. "I don't know, books, I guess." "Idiot." The first man roared, startling the crowd, "I know it's books, but what books? Boys, does it say anywhere on it of what might be inside?" Naruto inspected one side while his friends all took the other three faces of the box. "Nothing written on it, Gramps," Naruto said, making the man twitch in annoyance at the disrespect. "We'll need to open it." Kiba, who was already trying to pry the box apart with his bare hands, gave a stubborn look since it would not open for him. "Fat chance of that happening. It's sealed pretty darn tight." Shikamaru turned and inspected the crowd, "Anyone here got a box cutter?" "Oh, I have this." And with that Naruto produced a kunai knife. It was starting to rust and the blade was chipped, but Naruto gave it a look of pride. "I've had it since my first day in the academy, Databeo." "Well," the mother who had held him snapped impatiently, tapping her foot with her hands on her hips, "don't just leave us in suspense, brat. Open the box." Now that the moment had passed, everyone remembered just who young Naruto was and did not admonish the mother for the way she spoke to him. It was partly a taste of his own medicine. Naruto ignored her as he took his own sweet time working the kunai's sharp edge through the seal on the box. It was tougher than he expected, but he still managed to get it done. All the crowd inched that much closer as Choji and Shikamaru opened the box's top wide for their inspection. And all at once, the crowd's faces fell instantly as they saw what was inside. HMPH, a bunch of trash. That sneaky manager gave those poor boys such outdated reading material. How distasteful. Bunch of old garbage. Naruto looked around as the crowd started to thin, apparently they were disappointed with the contents of the box and saw no more reason to hang around. Everyone slowly went back to their daily lives almost as if nothing had happened. "Why is everyone so upset now?" Choji asked, scratching the back of his head as he pulled the first book from the box. It was entitled, The Deathberry, Volume 1. Hail to the Strawberry. On the cover was a ginger-haired boy with a stern heroic look as he wielded a massive sword and a black shakishma. The caption underneath read, "The moment the boy took the sword in his hand, everyday life announced its end." "That junk in your hands is the Deathberry series made over 50 years ago by Gotei," one of the adults answered in passing. It was his crowning achievement, but it was really dated for its time. The ending was just rushed, convoluted, and really unimpressive. The young lady also put forth her own 2 cents on the subject. "Those books didn't even hold a candle to his grandson's series called To Just Do's Strongest Disciple. Now that was a great comic series that holds up. I'm gonna go home and read my collection again." Not one to be deterred, Naruto took the book gingerly from Choji and gave the consideration. It couldn't possibly be as bad as the people were making it out to be. Maybe it just needed a fresh perspective from their generation of young readers. Glancing up at his friends, who were now taking books from the crate and giving each cover tentative looks, Naruto reluctantly and nervously opened his mouth to speak. "Hey, Tabeo," Naruto said, his smile wide and painted on his face, "do you maybe want to come over to my place to see if these are any good?" It was a shot in the dark, but Naruto would feel bad the rest of the week if he didn't take the chance. Kiba, Shikamaru, and Choji were true pals. And more than that, they were Naruto's only friends at all. Half the time they didn't bother with him because he was always causing trouble, but on days like this, Naruto wanted to extend what time they had together. He had just never invited anyone, much less clan heirs, into his apartment before. The only people who had ever seen the inside of his place were Ruka and Old Man Hokage. Instead of looking at his friend's expression and waiting for their answers, Naruto riffled through the box until he picked up a random volume. This guy on the front cover of volume 30 kind of looked like him well, except for the black hair. But the carefree grin and casual pose were almost exact replicas of his own mannerisms. "Yes, sure," Shikamaru agreed lazily, putting volume 16 back where it belonged amongst the pile. "It'll be a lot less troublesome if we bring this stuff to your place than any of ours." "You've got a point there, Kiba said, even as he reluctantly put back volume 34 of the series. His mom would never let him hear the end of it if he showed up with books that had half-naked women on the front covers. She would tease him relentless about it until he found himself a wife. Toji agreed as well as he replaced volume 5 back into the box and closed it. That settles it. Let's go to Naruto's house. Naruto smiled, glad that his friends weren't making things awkward for him. I hope you have snacks. I'm kind of hungry now that I think about it. On second thought, they could go straight home. Naruto liked his friends, but he liked his food even more. But with that thought safely tucked away, Naruto helped Kiba lift the heavy box of comic books and began leading the journey to his apartment complex on the other side of town. And the instant that happened, the ninja world announced an end to the everyday lives of its citizens. Chapter 2. Naruto's Groovy Soul Palace. Despite the fact that Naruto spent every waking moment of life vying for the smallest amount of respect and attention. Well, in this moment, he felt he could do well without it. The past few minutes had gone by with him hoping desperately that his friends would not make a big deal out of where he lived. But as they passed alleyways and stray cats while lugging the heavy box of comics they had gotten free from the local bookstore manager, Naruto felt distinctly awkward as they set off down another alleyway to get to his apartment complex the quickest. He had never had a proper conversation with his friends about where he lived or even how he lived. They knew he lived alone, without parents, and that Iruka visited him on occasion, with the idea being that they went out to eat. Now they were simply filled with questions. How big is your apartment? Do they allow pets? Rough. How big is your fridge? Do you have a terrace? Are there any junkyard dogs around? My clan is looking for strays. Is it close to any grocery stores I might know? I know them all. Can you see the sky well, or even sunbathe if you wanted? Each question was more awkward than the last, and all Naruto wanted to do was curl up in a ball and disappear. Instead, he fumbled for answers to every question they threw his way, trying to recall this and that in order to stay on cue with their constant bombardment. When at last they finally did stop asking questions, the three boys began to take notice of where Naruto was leading them. Kiba looked as though he were right at home with the cats that hissed his way only for Akamaru to bark at them, scaring more out of hiding, as it was rare for any dogs to be around. Choji appeared aware of Naruto's heightened sense of embarrassment. Shikamaru was vaguely disgusted one moment as they shuffled around a puddle of water dripping from a loose sewage pipe, but other than that he was completely relaxed the rest of the way. Geez, Naruto, Kiba said briskly, I hope your apartment is better than the alleys you keep leading us through. We are going to an apartment, right? Not the nest of the Rat King. Shut the hell up, Dadabeo. Naruto said, not bothering to watch his language as they were now on his turf, where people rarely visited unless they were a ninja or really desperate. My apartment kicks ass. Yeah, but you are leading us the right way, right? Shikamaru felt the need to ask because Naruto was not known for his sense of direction. I know the way to my place like the back of my hand, Shika. Naruto said brightly, give me a little credit, why don't ya? All we're saying is if there's an attack, Kiba began, his smirk showing he meant no offense, we as students of the academy have permission to kick ass. This is my turf, Naruto declared, shuffling the box in his hands as he wanted to point to the sky, no one is gonna mess with us here. Believe it, Dadabeo. Please stop just please. When at last they arrived at Naruto's apartment, Kiba was sucking in great gulps of air as he allowed his arms to go limp. The box dropped to the ground, Naruto jumping away from it so it wouldn't land on his feet. The progress had been slow due to the weight of the box and Naruto having to lead the way, but now that they were there, Naruto was sure Shikamaru had already memorized the path they took to figure out where they were in retrospective to his own house from some other location. Now the boys stood in a deserted district square, in the center of which sat a vacant lot with a few benches off to the sides of where Naruto's apartment complex jutted out like an enormous obstruction to the eye. It appeared only moderately rundown, as though the repairs to the building had been made hastily and with the least amount of effort. Naruto stood ready to continue, rubbing his reddened hands together as though they had been left back at the bookstore. I think I might have preferred the alleys to this piece of crap. Kiba, too, it seemed had abandoned his language filter. Hey, my apartment is great. You haven't even been inside yet. Naruto was not bothering to control the volume of his voice either. That meant there was no one to be disturbed by his loud obnoxious vocals. Choji smiled as he drew closer to the apartment, we'll have to see the place then. Come on. He set off at a brisk pace, strolling past the empty courtyard with Shikamaru at his heels. Well wait, Dadabeo. Naruto said as he hustled with Kiba to get the box and make his way up to the apartment first. They were nearing the apartment building that housed Naruto. Climbing the shabby steps all the way to the top floor was a chore, but seeing the small, neat stone garden housed on the terrace of the penthouse apartment was just curious enough to make the whole trip worthwhile. At his friend's inquisitive looks, Naruto sheepishly smiled. What? I like gardening. I would have never guessed, Shikamaru commented, more to himself than any of them. It struck him that Naruto truly was more than met the eye, even more so than he himself had given the blonde credit for. Shikamaru was too busy digesting the idea of seeing Naruto taking care of fragile and fickle plants to have much attention left for anything else. Oh, crap. Kiba yelled in pain, grasping his foot as they reached the front door to what had to be Naruto's dwelling. He had probably kicked the door, and from the smug look on Naruto's face, the blonde had let him. What? Naruto asked as he saw the look on Shikamaru's face. It was annoyed and bored, something that told Naruto he was being entirely too childish. He threatened to kick the door down. I gave him a chance. It's not my fault he didn't know it's lined with metal, Dadabeo. Shikamaru continued to stare at him unabashed. Oh man, Choji said, concerned for Kiba, are you gonna be okay? Yeah, I'll be just fine. Kiba said, the throbbing in his face more painful from his fight with Naruto than the pain in his foot. He half expected the door to be hanging off its hinges, but looking up he saw that he had barely even left shoe scuff on the front. I'm gonna have to clean that off, aren't I? Yup. Naruto chirped happily, then gained an apprehensive look. Mind explaining exactly why your front door is reinforced with metal, Uzumaki? Shikamaru inquired with an arched eyebrow pointed directly at Naruto. Naruto tried to offer a casual shrug, but it was a little too mechanic to seem natural for the easygoing blonde's normal habits. The kind used to be a bad neighborhood when I was growing up, you know. The way he was saying this was just a little too casual, Shikamaru thought to himself. Almost as if he didn't want them to pay his words much heed. The Nara clan boy narrowed his eyes on Naruto's back. The blonde was fumbling for his house key, which was strange seeing as how when he finally got it out, it was the only key on the ring. Right, it appeared as though Kiba had noticed Naruto's glossing over facts as well, and by the worried look Choji was shooting Naruto's back, even he had taken notice too. It's a lot better now, Dadabeo. This sounded more like the natural Naruto they knew, almost everyone else has moved away for good. Shikamaru glanced away, as did Kiba and Choji. They weren't touching that somber statement with a kunai knife if they could help it. They half knew Naruto lived on his own, but to be isolated in this area with only the occasional person and a little garden as company was far more depressing than any of the children wanted to deal with at the moment. Arg. Come on, man. Kiba yelled, shoving Naruto to get him out of his present funk. Help with this damn box already. Geez, I think I got a frickin' splinter or something. I am helping, dirty mutt. Naruto responded, and Shikamaru gave a sigh of long suffering. Just because we're out of earshot from adults doesn't mean the two of you have to lose all your filters, the Nara muttered as he entered the apartment behind the two carrying their loot. It would only make sense that someone like Naruto use colorful language. Choji shrugged, a gentle smile on his plump face, you know, given the fact that he runs around the village in an orange jumpsuit. Hey. What's wrong with the way I dress, Dadabeo? Everything, Naruto, just everything. Glancing around the apartment as they entered, each of the boys would have made their academy instructors very proud with their observational skills. From the doorway they had stepped directly into a tiny sitting room, which had the feeling of a warm open environment despite its small space. A soft-looking yet worn-out threadbare sofa rested in front of a junky television set with an old armchair off to one side and a tattered welcome rug under the boys' feet. Beyond that and to their right was Naruto's kitchen, which too was small and completely covered in shelves and cabinets, most of them shut tight in worn brown wood or replaced white painted doors. The rickety dining table was tiny and looked comfortable enough for only two people sitting opposite each other. The hallway was just as tiny, with barely enough finger space between the bathroom and the hall closet, while Naruto's bedroom door rested opposite the two at the end of the hall. Overall, despite the size of his apartment, there was an overflow of warm reception to the place that genuinely made Kiba, Shikamaru, and even Choji falter for a second before they quickly collected themselves lest they make a scene. Even if they were bathed in poor dim lighting, as though cast by a candle-filled lamp hung from the ceiling instead of an actual light bulb, the place had an air of care and in every inch showed it was usually inhabited by one Naruto Uzumaki. Don't look so surprised, Bayo Naruto scoffed, his arms crossed and held his chin high. Choji moved past him in order to get a better look into the kitchen. He really wanted some snacks now. Sorry we can't control our reaction, Shikamaru fired back lazily, but if you acted half as civilized as this apartment suggests. And not like some common stray raised in the backwoods. Kiba barked, but no one paid him any attention. Then people would treat you better and maybe you'd have more friends. Shikamaru finished as though nothing had interrupted him. Naruto gave his friend the stink eye, scowling his best even while he privately admitted to himself that he did come off a little rough around the edges to others, even complete strangers. He could probably dial the attitude down a bit. Adebayo. I don't need friends if all they do is criticize me. He said instead of what was going through his head at the moment. It wouldn't do well to give Shikamaru the satisfaction of knowing he was right. They both knew, mind you, but admitting it aloud would give the Nara a smug look that wouldn't go away for at least an hour or two. Choji came up from where he was peeking into Naruto's kitchen, only to slap the blonde roughly on the back with a hefty laugh. "Ah, come on Naruto. Us misfits gotta stick together, right?" Then a look overcame Choji's face, kind of makes me wonder if we should invite Shino to hang out with us. However, no one said anything as they all had the image of Shino standing with them inside Naruto's apartment. They could just image his dark shades revealing nothing of the boy behind them, only for his gaze to pierce all of them. Then there would be the awkward talk about bugs collections and logic that the Abiram boy was playground famous for. Ma, Naruto quickly recollected himself, waving a hand dismissively. Shino is probably busy, Tobeo. Guy like him seems to always have something important to take care of. He's a practical one. Not to mention how creepy the guy is, Kiba grumbled, but didn't want to offend. They all knew Shino would be a great comrade when they finally became ninja. However, they would be just fine to keep him as a classmate instead of friend for the moment. Well, let's open this up and get a better peek of what's inside. Kiba turned on heel and laid a hand on the crate of books. The others gathered around the crate with him and Naruto once again produced a rusted kunai he kept with him at all times. He used a ninja knife to prop open the box, moving in tandem with Kiba as the two heaved the top out of the way and carried it over to a wall to sit against. Shikamaru and Choji were busy throwing out volumes of manga as they went through the box in order to see exactly how many books they had gotten. There must be over 100 books in here. Shikamaru muttered, but was sure the others heard him as he picked up yet another volume before passing it on to Naruto, who was now at his side. Kiba joined Choji on the other end of the box as they tried to sort the volumes into order. That guy must have just been looking for a reason to clear these away. No kidding, Naruto easily agreed, taking a hold of volume 70 before tossing it over to Kiba. Kinda makes you wonder what was so bad if this series managed to make it so far. That old geezer and the woman said it ended really poorly, Dadabeo. We'll just have to read to find out if that was true. Choji said, turning around as he picked up volume 1 and handed it to Naruto, who looked stricken. Something wrong? Yeah? Naruto shouted hysterically, why the hell are you handing it to me, Bayo? Well, this is your apartment, so Shikamaru drawled with an unimpressed look. Silly he might be, but dummy Naruto was not. He could read just as well as any of them. Naruto snatched the book with a grumble, fine, you bastards. Make me do all the work after inviting you into my lovely home. Choji smiled brightly, and do you have any snacks, dude? Eat the fruit in your pouch, Dadabeo. Naruto snapped comically at his hefty friend. Opening the first volume to the appropriate page, Naruto cleared his throat and began earnestly. If he were going to read this, he was at least going to make them feel bad by putting them to shame with his amazing public speaking skills. Deathberry number 1. Strawberry and the Soul Reapers. We fear that which cannot be seen. Hey, my name is Ichigo Kurosaki. And for as long as I've known, I could see spirits of the dearly departed. Kiba interrupted as Naruto was leaning back for Choji to see the illustrations properly. Just what the hell does that mean? He barked, looking around himself for ghosts. His behavior was thoroughly ignored, even by Akamaru, who was more engrossed in the story at the mention of spirits for one reason or another. Naruto continued to read the manga as it opened before them, ensnaring their senses as they saw before their eyes Ichigo fighting street hooligans and talking to the spirit of the little girl. Then they made it to the scene where Ichigo's father kicked him in the face as a form of greeting. Hey. Kiba exclaimed with a toothy smile on his face, my mom welcomes me home like that, too, sometimes. I knew I wasn't the only one. Ami had me thinking my family was crazy or something. Naruto gave his friend a deadpan look, Kiba, I worry about you sometimes, Tobeo. Shikamaru gave a sigh at all the interruptions, can we please just get through this volume with no more pauses? The others exchanged looks before nodding, and they all once again became engrossed with the world of Deathberry. It had only been a couple of hours since the 4 young shinobi students had begun their adventure into the manga of one Kubo Tite, but none of them could say they were disappointed so far. In fact, they were far from it. Deathberry was awesome. No way. I can't believe that just happened, Dadabeo. He was the bad guy all along. How? He was so nice. That was wow. How could he just join the enemy like that? It makes no sense. The 4 were in complete shock as volume 20 slipped from Shikamaru's lax grip. It was an unbelievable conclusion to an unimaginable first story arc. The characters were all distinct and lively, the settings were breathtaking in their differences from that of Konoha, and the story itself was amazing as it took the 4 boys on a journey they never saw coming from where they started on the first book. Aizen was so insanely powerful. Kiba exclaimed with a look of awe on his face. Akamaru gave a bark of agreement next to him, the ninja dog's tail wagging excitedly. He beat 3 Bankai with barely any effort. Choji joined in on the conversation, defeating someone like Toshiro Hitsugaya, I could see coming a mile away. The guy let his emotions run away from him and he paid the price. child prodigy or not. Ichigo was understandable, too, especially after the fight he had finished against Byakuya Kichiki. Ichigo is just lucky to be alive. Shikamaru agreed with a nod of his head. But that Captain Kamamura looked like he had Aizen for a moment there. Kiba broke back in, dimly aware that Naruto had disappeared for the moment. He probably went to the bathroom. I guess none of them stood a chance, what with being under his illusions and all. Speaking of just that, Shikamaru narrowed his eyes. Well, it's obvious they aren't ninja and therefore can't break ninjutsu like those that the Aizen guy's Zanpakuto produces. Is it really safe to assume Aizen didn't hypnotize Ichigo while fighting him? That's a good point, Choji scratched under his own chin and thought, but I think it is safe to assume. Ichigo didn't witness any special flashes of light or anything. The only time Aizen drew his sword against Ichigo was to try and cut him in half. Ichigo barely had time to be shocked that Aizen stopped him with a hand, no, with a finger. The strawberry just didn't have the time to be hypnotized because Aizen took him out of the fight so quickly. That's true, Shikamaru sighed, rubbing his fingers through his hair and massaging his scalp. Naruto came back into the sitting room, drying his hands with a small towel as he looked beyond his friends to his front door. The others turned to him, but then had to turn back to the front door as a steady knock came to it. I'll get it. Naruto said when he saw Choji arise from the threadbare rug in the sitting room to be a good guest. However, Naruto wasn't stupid. There were only enough people to count on one hand that would show up to his door, even less that would have the manners to knock first. At the door stood Shikamaru's father, Shikaku Nara. No matter where Naruto saw Shikaku Nara around the village, the first thing he always noticed about the man were the two face scars he possessed on the right side of his face. They were deep and drew the eye even more easily than Naruto's own orange jumpsuit. There were times where Naruto believed scars like those would get people's attention and even perhaps generate some respect for him. However, he knew in his heart that it would be useless without the years of shinobi career to bolster such respect. Just like his son, Shikaku had dark hair tied up into a spiky ponytail. His dark eyes flicked with interest as they landed on the books scattered around them and the open crate off to the side. Shikaku gave a sigh as he greeted Naruto neutrally and entered the apartment when Naruto invited him inside. Honestly, he had nothing against the kid, but also didn't want any headaches by having him around too often. Luckily, it seemed Shikamaru grew up to be just like him and never invited the blonde over to their house much. Listening to his son explain himself, because they apparently hadn't even realized how the sun was setting, Shikaku began to stroke his goatee. With his earrings glinting in the dimly lit room, Shikaku thought about what to do with this new level of friendship between the four boys. Never before had he heard anything of Naruto inviting Shikamaru or the others into his apartment, and maybe that was a good thing. The people had only begun to simmer down in the past few years as Naruto grew older. This new level of trust was not unwelcome, but it did warrant curiosity. Further observation was required. He was well aware that they were all dead lasts in their year, but that didn't matter much to him. Each would grow into competent shinobi when under the tutelage of a Jonin sensei for individualistic training. So for now Shikaku was content to let them play and be children. And that was why he decided to allow the boys to sleep over at Naruto's apartment. Well, that and because he was supposed to be bringing them all to his house, but didn't want the headache of four prepubescent boys running around or talking loud in his home. He loved them all, even held a special liking for Naruto, but there was no way in hell he was gonna invite that kind of chaos into his house when he could just as easily avoid it. So, with that in mind, Shikaku left them with a surplus of pillows and blankets before disappearing, just as Naruto realized that the old fart was dumping his problems into his blonde lap. That ear-hurting bastard. Naruto growled, annoyed that Shika's dad was so much like him, it was scary. Oh well, at least now we can finally. Naruto didn't get a chance to finish as he moved his head out of the way of a slash aimed to take off his noggin. What the hell? Naruto blurted out as he blinked in confusion, only to find a wooden broomstick pointed in his face, courtesy of Kiba and Yuzuka. Pain. Kiba snarled, why did you fight that hollow alone? Why were you so damn stubborn? Renji Abarai, will put an end to your hard-headedness by beating it out of you. Hatching on to the game Kiba was playing at, Naruto rolled to the side and reached under the sofa for the old lead pipe he kept around as a safety precaution. You're one to talk, Abarai. Going off to fight that jerk Byakuya was an even dumber move. At least I stood a chance against the hollow before it used its stupid unforeseen special ability. How stupid were you to forget that someone like Captain Kichiki possessed Bankai as well? Kiba's eyes narrowed, but the smirk on his face was all in good fun. He ran at Naruto, and the two clashed. I'm gonna make you eat those words, Shiba. Bring it, Abarai. Naruto goaded, and the two fought. Shikamaru and Choji watched the two bang around the apartment for a bit, jumping on and off the sofa while avoiding each other. They both managed to score a few hits, but were too inexperienced with sword-like weapons to do any real damage. Akamaru barked at them a few times, growing worried that his partner might actually get hurt. Shikamaru turned to Choji, who was watching Kiba and Naruto fight with great care. Should we step in or something? Choji shook his head, his eyes gaining a trace of stern resolve. No. Choji turned to Shikamaru and stared hard at him for a moment before going back to watching Naruto corner Kiba, who was preparing to dodge Naruto's finishing attack. Listen very carefully to my words, Shikamaru. There are two types of fights in this world. Whenever we are in battle, we must be one of the two. The fight for life or the fight for pride. Right, Nokayan is fighting for his pride. His wife's prettiest men's pride, most importantly his own personal pride. Dismiss this as his stubbornness and let him fight alone like this. Shikamaru smirked as Choji perfectly recalled the line Yukitake said from chapter 135 about Kain's fight with the Hollow, that it killed not only his subordinates, but also his own wife. As you wish, Captain Yukitake. Ah, you're mine now. Kiba shouted in exertion. His attack flew towards Naruto, who looked grim as he managed to avoid it by slipping sideways and slashing at Kiba's middle. Kiba took the attack, but didn't see the follow-up as he was kicked back by Naruto's foot catching his chest. HMPH, this is no more challenging than my morning exercises. Naruto boasted, the old pipe now slung over his shoulder as he stood like the overly cocky Kenpachi Zaraki. I thought you said you were going to destroy me. And still you bragged. The voice behind him was unexpected. Naruto turned quickly to see Choji there with red-hot anger blazing in his eyes. It is now time to pay for your arrogance. Choji had found another of the broomsticks around Naruto's apartment and launched himself at the blonde. Roar, Tinkin. Shikamaru, in a fit of childish, made the explosion sound as Choji hit Naruto, and Naruto pretended to be defeated. Shikamaru then stepped between the two as he waved his arms, as though a cloud of dust and debris were obscuring Naruto from view. Take 2 steps back, Sajin. Shikamaru spoke softly to imitate Kanam Tosen's voice, as he had a rusted pipe of his own now, break all his limbs, Suzumashi, Form 2. Benhaku. Kiba was on the side already, raining rolled up bits of scroll paper and shooting them at Naruto, who let them hit him, as they were all laughing at how Kiba was making whooshing noises as the paper hit the blonde in the face and chest. It is over, Choji said as he feigned sheathing a sword, even if he is Kenpachi Zaraki, he should be shattered into pieces. Naruto's grin threatened to split his face in two as he took out the bit of paper that was stuck in his messy blonde hair. What's over? Naruto cocked his head to the side, looking a little more than slightly insane. I take back what I said, this won't even warm me up. Aizen. Shikamaru switched gears to his favorite scene from the manga, playing the part of Hitsugaya as he placed the old pipe behind his back and stared at Naruto with bemused anger. I'll ask you again. What happened to Momo? Naruto's look of mildly elated insanity disappeared completely as it was replaced by an expression of calm sincerity. It wasn't my intention to deceive you. It's just that out of all of you, there wasn't a single person who could see my true face. Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba were a little creeped out at the complete switch to Naruto's persona at the drop of the hat. His voice even sounded like what they imagined to be that of Sasuke. His eyes were gazing at them uncaringly, as though the three of them specks of dust to be swept away in his power. Naruto smiled without care as he stalked toward them with an uneasy aura surrounding him. Kiba actually gave a step back, and Choji looked very nervous. After all, admiration is the feeling furthest from understanding. Naruto allowed the dim lights to play off his face as Shikamaru roared and charged at him. Naruto stood stock still, and Choji's eyes widened as he believed Shikamaru had actually taken things too far and stabbed Naruto with the pipe. Oh. Naruto howled, the pipe tucked between his arm and side. Choji gave a sigh of relief. But no. I am the illusion. And now you're the dead. Naruto hit Shikamaru atop the head with his pipe, making a bonk sound. And now I am the dead. Heh. Shikamaru snorted, shaking his head at Naruto's very childish statement. Man, all the characters in these books are amazing. All of them are so different. Almost like actual people. Kiba exclaimed with Akamaru yipping in agreement. The others nodded as they too shared the same opinion. My favorite character so far has to be Renji, though. He seems almost exactly like me. Rough around the edges, maybe, but we always know when to be serious and when to do what's right. Plus, his tattoos make my clan markings look tame. The guy is savage, and I mean that in the good way. Didn't know there was a good way, Choji mumbled in jest, an amused smile playing on his lips. But I'm with ya, Kiba. Though I would say that a Kaku guy also fits you well, too. Thanks, Joe. Kiba smiled proudly, knowing that his friend was complimenting him. My favorite has to be Yukitake. He's smart, nice, and has all this confidence about himself even though he's really sickly. I mean, it has to take a powerful man and an even more powerful record of success to stay on in the high-ranking captain position if you're practically terminally ill. Yukitake reminds me a lot of my dad. Never heard my old man say a bad word in my life, and I've only seen him a few times without a smile on his face. My dad is always kind to others and he even lets a few people eat free at your clan restaurant when he's really generous. Sounds like you wanna be just like your dad, Dadabeo. There was something in Naruto's tone that made the others look back at him, but they didn't see anything to make them worry. He was smiling softly at Choji, his cerulean blue eyes shimmering with an unreadable emotion. Sometimes they forgot that Naruto didn't have the blessing of family. Yeah, you're right, Naruto, I do want to be just like him. He's the best guy I know. Choji nodded, not afraid to basically admit that his dad was his idol. Ma Kairaku is where it's at, Shikamaru affirmed from where he petting Akamaru's fur. That guy had to be based off the Nara family. Of that, I have little doubt. Smart, lazy, and genuinely underestimated by the people around him. Now that's who I can see myself growing up to be. Yeah, maybe, Naruto conceded, but the wry smile on his face left Shikamaru's skin itching with foreboding, but you're not as lazy as people think, Dadabeo. When I think about you compared to the characters of Bleach, I see you more as Hitsugaya than Kairaku as you are now. Maybe in a few years you won't let yourself run away with your emotions. Shikamaru snorted peevishly. That's rich coming from someone like you. I would call you Ichigo, but that guy was actually pretty smart compared to you. Naruto's smile only grew. There you go, throwing back smart remarks to cover up your butthurt feelings, Dadabeo. DSK, whatever. Naruto's grin threatened to split his face, but Shikamaru refused to give him the satisfaction of knowing he was right. Toji peered at Naruto and thought for a moment before turning to Shikamaru. So who is Naruto in the world of Deathberry, Shikamaru? He is 100% Yamamoto. As Naruto's irritation exploded, Shikamaru gained a grin of his own for the payback he was due. The hell, Dadabeo. Shikamaru, you bastard. Hey, I just call it like I see it, old man Yama. Toji gave Shikamaru a deadpan look, considering that he had riled up the most feisty kind in their entire academy, aside from Kiba. Kiba and Akamaru were also giving Shikamaru looks of exasperation, while Naruto went off on a tirade about spilling the Nara kid's guts. Then the three boys all grinned to each other, all too amused to allow such a priceless moment to pass them by without taking advantage. You know what, Shika is kind of right, Choji muttered quietly, causing Naruto to explode again, this time more in shock than anger. What? Yeah, Kiba went on with the joke, nodding sagely to his friend's assessments. I see it. Yeah, I definitely see it. Naruto turned a glare at the Inyazuka boy, you don't see anything, mutt. I'm nothing at all like that old geezer, Dadabeo. Despite your pranks and tendency for trouble, you uphold the rules very closely. I mean, even you know when to draw the line, and you never do anything too serious that disturbs the peace of the village. Kiba started as Naruto's face went sour. They were really trying to rationalize this crap. Plus you are the one that tries to help others by showing off in class. Granted, it usually turns out badly for you, but you're actually the one everyone in class looks to when they need to see how things are done versus being told what to do. We take practical examples from you and theory from Iruka-sensei. Choji confessed and afterward gained a strange look on his face. So did Shikamaru, but not Kiba, who was still smirking up a storm. And you are the oldest of us all, remember? Taking and failing those 2 exams must have been quite the task, but if anyone should have passed them at our age, it would be our elder. I'm only a few months older than you brats. Exactly. Shikamaru then took over, now appearing more thoughtful and entertained. You get angry easy when you think someone's not doing the right thing, and you don't usually hold anything back in sparring practice, not even when fighting the girls. Hey, they can kick and punch just as hard as we can. Besides, Iruka-sensei always says to never underestimate your enemy. Naruto defended, and Kiba gained the same considering look that Choji and Shikamaru had. Plus you're super loyal. I mean, I don't think we can throw you away right now without getting our asses kicked over the betrayal to your friendship. Kiba stated with a finger tapping his chin, my mom says you're like a half Inyazuka when I tell her about all the time we hang out, and she says that misguiding your trust might be the death of me. And everyone can see how loyal you are to Iruka-sensei. Choji nodded to his own assessment, as did Kiba and Shikamaru. At this point, Naruto's anger was just a deflated balloon of its former self, as he half considered what was being said about him. He sat on his threadbare rug with his legs and arms crossed and a grimace on his face. I mean, Iruka is the only person at the academy who can find you and convince you to come back to class. He ties you up, but even we know how easily you can escape, or else you'd never get a prank done around the village. When you are in class, you do try your best. It just doesn't come with the best results because of your impatience. Nevertheless, you do take being a ninja and gaining respect very seriously. And you expect the same from the rest of us. Shikamaru muttered mutinously. If you ever get a handle on your training and some semblance of patience, you would be exactly the kinda guy I'd want watching my back on missions. I can't find fault with your loyalty to the village. Hell, you're such a bleeding heart that you'd probably sacrifice yourself for us. Shikamaru glanced off to the side, making his expression unreadable to the others. I can't die on missions with you. Naruto snapped, sure, I'd try and save you guys, but I wouldn't die from it. I still have to become Hokage so everyone in the village will see what an awesome guy I am. Yet, even with those words, Naruto knew that it would be a great honor and his duty to lay down his life for the sake of the village. People like Kiba and Choji and Shikamaru had families waiting in the village for them, worried about their safety. Naruto had no one. If he could give his life for them to go back to Shikaku and Tsume and Chaozu. Naruto shook his head. He didn't want to think about it. Yet and still he already knew his answer. So he said with his hair overshadowing his eyes. You brats think I'm old man Yamamoto, huh? Kiba and Choji gulped fretfully, while Shikamaru partially foresaw this reaction. Then prepare yourselves for a beating. Naruto bellowed as he picked up the nearest broomstick and gave chase to his now fleeing friends. Wait, old man Yama. We haven't released our swords. Don't burn us yet. Impudent children deserve a thrashing. Yamamoto-sensei, please don't hurt us. The good burning would teach you youngsters a lesson not soon forgotten, Dadabeo. Ow. Naruto, that actually hurt. Wait, ow. Be silent. This is your punishment for disrespecting your elders. The boys played well into the night, fighting each other and imagining themselves into the pages of their now favorite story. Half through to dawn, they had all fallen into sleep with different volumes adorning their laps as they thought to reread their preferred sections of the first part of the story. Never knowing, did they, that their everyday lives would be changed from that night onward. Chapter 3. Ino wants in. Ino knew they were complete and utter losers. Dorks. Spazzes. Nerds and burnouts of the lowest pecking order. Without a single doubt in her mind, she understood with all her womanly intuition now that these four idiots were total failures to society and needing immediate purging from all relevant social groups. It was a true wonder that any of them could even function. Especially when they ran around doing things like what she had stumbled upon. And were those broomsticks? Seriously? And what was with the white bathhouse robes over their slightly stylish black ninja wear? But of course Naruto would be the one still in that horrid orange jumpsuit he was so fond of. And why were they acting like total rejects in the middle of broad daylight? Naruto she could understand. The moron had no quarrels with being an outcast. Heck, he was one all his life. Kiba, too, she could see behaving in such a rough manner as he tried to assault Naruto with a stupidly polished broomstick. And did Uzumaki just flip over the side swipe? That'd look difficult and yet remarkable as his hand caught the ground and the blonde flipped again away from the others with his broomstick still in hand. Naruto was gymnastic, not that she was praising him or anything. She could do 10 times better than him. Choji was always a bit of a loose cannon when it came to people he considered his friends. He didn't necessarily care how he looked so long as the person he was hanging out with didn't mind. And for once Ino was seeing the chubby boy without a bag of chips or candy anywhere nearby. Oh wait, she spoke too soon. There was a pile of snacks over by the apartment complex that looked like all but the top level needed to be torn down. Choji stood at the ready beside Shikamaru before they launched into action, shouting out such stupid nonsense that had them slashing and hacking at Naruto while calling him Kenpachi Zaraki, whatever that was. They even took to throwing blunted weapons at Naruto, which the blonde was either dodging or batting away with his polished broomstick, as Ino knew the weapons were very blunt because they didn't even have points where the knife edges should have been. Hell, the kunai weren't even sticking into the ground when they fell. And as she squinted from her obviously not hiding place of standing in the middle of the open street, Ino was starting to think that those broomsticks weren't actually broomsticks. They were Bakken wooden practice swords that looked to be freshly purchased from perhaps a week or two ago. The wooden blades still looked new, but had a few dents in them where they had met resistance. The one Naruto was using looked the most beat up. He probably used it a lot more than the others, who had clans behind them to teach each of them more refined arts than beating sticks against practice dummies or anything the no-name orphan could boast. But even still, Naruto was keeping pace with his 3 opponents because Ino could now clearly see that was what this theater of beating each other up was. Them versus Naruto, 3 against 1. Yet still, Naruto was outlasting them. He leapt over Choji to deliver a one-handed strike against Kiba, who only barely had enough time to get his guard up to repel the heavy strike. Watching these losers even more intently than she would ever admit, Ino noticed how Naruto fell thoughtlessly, instinctively, into the prowling assessment that presaged every academy weapons bout they had shared together under the watchful eye of Iruka-sensei and his assistant Mizuki. Eyes intent, that smug grin lurking, Naruto moved like a predator, and the others countered him by matching him step for step. Come on now, I thought you said this was going to be better than my morning exercises. Naruto's voice sounded weird to Ino's ears. She had heard his loud-mouthed nonsense more than she ever cared to, so she knew his voice as good as anyone. Whereas normally he sounded whiny and bratty, like a child who didn't get mommy and daddy's attention, here he sounded gruff and ill-tempered, like a swordsman itching for a good battle. And maybe that was right. Naruto certainly didn't look winded, but Choji and Shikamaru were already breathing hard. Hiba appeared slightly warmed up, but Naruto was as cool as if he hadn't yet stepped on the field of their bout. "Ready?" Kiba asked his teammates in this match. Choji and Shikamaru nodded, tensing themselves as they stood. Shikamaru held his Bakken in an open stance, as tense as he was relaxed, even despite the rapid rise and fall of his chest. Choji was the same, but he had a two-handed grip of his sword in front of him, whereas Shikamaru was one-handed and held his sword up at his side like an open challenge. Hiba crouched low and held his Bakken above his head, angling down until the point was almost at his knee. "Come at me." Ino felt that shout from Naruto. Maybe he was a little too battle-ready, as if he were trying to project bloodlust. And she watched still as their dance began. When she had come all this way on the mere whim of seeing where Shikamaru and Choji were spending all their time, where once they liked to take a few days of slothful loafing around at her family's flower shop, this was the last thing Ino had expected. Neither boy was the training for training's sake type of person, and when she learned that this abandoned block was actually where Naruto lived, Ino had almost laughed. Of course no one wanted to live around the braddest kid in existence. Naruto probably gave people hell on a normal basis for even stepping foot near his place. Ino could see it now and had almost let slip a hysterical laughter. Of course, she didn't because people were around and she didn't need any rumors get out that she was crazy. People already thought her family were a bunch of nutjobs because of the mental ninja arts they practiced, so she wasn't going to be adding fuel to that fire. However, to see Shikamaru and Choji actually busting their asses in an unnecessary dork fight against Naruto was not even in the realm of possibilities she had imagined. And, wow, were they really putting some effort into it. Moving and then standing much closer than she would ever admit, Ino found herself becoming unsuitably envious of her four male peers. "I'll never handle a Bakken that well. Geez, it's like they're trying to kill each other right here and now. Even if I train 20 hours a day I don't think I'll ever be like them." Of course they were all brute force and fancy flips. Naruto seemed to have a little more technique to his movements than the others, but it was still rough and unrefined. Ino had flexibility and finesse. She had craft and deft in what she knew. Where they were fighting like barbarians trying to knock each other's brains out, Ino knew she could skim around all of them with the grace of a dancer or gymnast. They were stone and she was water. She studied them more than anyone would know that day as Naruto pitted himself against Kiba, Choji, and Shikamaru in a play, dueling each other in the demanding form of swordsmanship. And it was play, even though they were deadly serious. Watching her classmates leap over each other, she wondered what had gotten them to this point. She had never seen or heard any of them take an active interest in their training as future shinobi. Had never heard of them inquiring about swords or samurai. And when did they have the time to get so good? And who had shown them these techniques and moves? Because she could clearly see they were copying someone with the sloppiness of their specific attacks against each other, whereas they could have just continued to slash and hack at one another until a side fell exhausted. Ino frowned on the inside, where none of them would see if they suddenly took notice of her, but she doubted they would. And that made her angry, too. This was their training session, and she was an unwanted spectator to it. This was Naruto Uzumaki, Kiba Inuzuka, Choji Akimichi, and Shikamaru Nara dancing with their toy swords for their own amusement and improvement. It wasn't for her. She was the one butting in, being nosy where they probably wanted no eyes upon them. And that wasn't fair, she felt. An unworthy thought, she knew, and she thought it anyway just for a moment. Because she should be included, if only to mock them and their hard work. Choji was a faddis, as wide as he was caring and gentle. And Shikamaru was a loser, as smart as he was lazy and unmotivated. They were her friends, even if she had never called them such to their faces. She was the one who was supposed to get them off their asses and off to the races. Not Naruto. Not Kiba. And those two ugh. Kiba was a mutt in every sense of the word. He looked scruffy, he sounded boorish, and he carried himself with a pride that hardly seemed acceptable for his station in the social order of their classroom. More often than not, Ino wanted to tear him a new asshole because of the cocky grins and self-assured words he threw around. And Naruto Uzumaki was a dozen times worse. At least Kiba had a clan name behind him and some basic manners to fall back on. Hell, Kiba even had some good grades every now and then, along with the training his family put him through, that made him redeemable. Naruto had nothing redeemable about him. He was a loser in every sense of the word, and Ino would stand by that verdict as long as she lived. Naruto was a no-name orphan. He was a troublemaker. He was the dead last student of their class. He was ill-mannered and quick-tempered. He never paid attention in class and skipped school as often as they attended it in his absence. He pulled pranks around the village on anyone no matter their station in the social order. He had no manners at all and no training. And yet still he acted with all the swagger of one of the Hokage. He grinned big and spoke an even bigger game with nothing to show for it. He was a stain on her sensibilities and she wished he would just move to another village. And yet here he was with all of them, including her Shika and Cho, training hard and still grinning as he made Kiba, Shika, and Cho sweat for his amusement. She wished even more that Naruto Uzumaki would disappear at the moment. He was stealing a spotlight Ino had never really thought anyone would or could take from her. He was making Shikamaru and Choji sweat just for the hell of it, but the sweat didn't stop them. The mock fight carried on. Strike and counter strike, blow and counter blow, leaping and spinning and slashing and evading. Running and jumping, as one with the rhythm of battle. Every now and then, a sharp bark of laughter from Kiba. A good-natured jibe from Naruto. A clever hit acknowledged by Choji. Shikamaru had maneuvered himself at one point in the spar, so Naruto's attention was caught between Choji and Kiba before he slapped his Bakken across the blonde prankster's backside. And Naruto had howled at that without any real irritation rising from the normally sore loser. That made Kiba and Choji laugh. Ino laughed with them to herself quietly and didn't mind so much that they were still not aware of her. Because, after all, she was there to see them and not the other way around. And to herself, she reasoned that they were sort of dancing for her. No one could take that away from her. As she watched them, they paused again for a moment to let Shikamaru and Choji catch their breath. Kiba was also wiping the sweat from his brow, but Naruto had only just started breathing hard. He had a light sheen covering his forehead, but aside from that and the dirt on his white bathrobe, he seemed perfectly ready to continue until sundown. Then they resumed, and though it scarcely seemed possible, they were fighting so swiftly already, Naruto gripped his Bakken in two hands, something Ino only just took notice of. They went on at an increased speed. The training swords moved in a blur too fast for a normal person, but with the training they received at the academy during observation classes, Ino was easily able to keep up with who was beating up who. Holding her breath, amazed at the way they were now going at their fullest, she watched her four boys put on a display of their true skill level. No longer was it 1 versus 3, but now it was a free-for-all as Choji attacked Shikamaru, who slid the Akimichi boy into the path of Kiba before Naruto jumped into the fray and batted them all away before Shikamaru gave a roundhouse kick to Naruto's torso. Strike, block, parry, evade, bind, countermeasure, broken time, body to body and double release, push, pull, feint, backflip, recover, and start again all over. When Naruto jumped away from Kiba, he leaped atop the courtyard's wall and Kiba pursued. Naruto seemed to curse his luck as they dueled fiercely atop the brick structure. He finally got an opening, but it was blocked by Shikamaru, who had finally managed to distract Choji by pulling his bathrobe over his head. Shikamaru tripped Naruto off the wall and caught the blonde in the side with his Bakken when it looked like Naruto would recover from the fall. He would have finished Naruto off if Kiba didn't jump down with an overhead two-handed heavy slash that swept the dust from the ground. Naruto rolled away just in time, as the strike seemed just as much for him as it was for Shika. But not even her brats could keep this kind of playground warfare up, and Ino could see them all beginning to truly tire from their pace and power. So, like a true ninja, Ino made her presence purposefully known to them then, when they were too tired and weak to do anything about it. Not that she cared. And not like she had enjoyed watching them and decided they needed a break anyway, mind you. Just as Shikamaru caught Naruto on the shoulder with a particularly hard whack of his Bakken, Ino walked up with her hands on her hips, clearly marching toward them as though she had just arrived on scene. "What are you idiots doing?" She snapped at them like she was only now seeing them. It wasn't hard to fake. That had been her initial reaction to seeing them play around in bathrobes with a bunch of sticks. Don't you morons have anything better to do than bang around like a bunch of kids? Honestly, I don't even know why I bother with any of you dorks. You'd rather dress up in bathrobes and beat on each other with sticks like some kids than commit to serious ninja training like my Sasuke. Why can't you losers be more like him? I bet he's hard at training right now while the four of you are nerding it up over here. Naruto appeared too shocked by her preemptive verbal assault to say anything. He was still rubbing that shoulder of his as his cerulean blue eyes found her with surprise as clear as day in them. Shikamaru and Choji also didn't have words for her as they glanced at each other in a rather confused manner. Kiba, however, didn't miss a chance to mouth off. Even when Naruto was clearly working things out still as he looked at her searchingly, Kiba shouldered his Bakken and gave her that damnable cocky grin she wanted to punch off his mutt face. "What's got you in such a mood, Ino? Sasuke caught you stalking him again. I told you he'll get the police force on you and those other girls you hang out with if you don't stop," Kiba said as if it were plain truth. Ino grit her teeth in fury. How dare he say something so boorish to her? Sasuke would never call the police on her. Or anyone, for that matter. Her Sasuke was as gallant as he was strong, and this mutt knew nothing about the budding love they shared. "Give me that." Ino snatched away the Bakken from Choji so quick that he hardly had time to react. She leveled it at Kiba, who looked shocked and surprised before she flew forward with a barest lunge at the knees and ankles. The point of the Bakken was aimed directly at Kiba's heart, and while it won't kill him, it would smart for just long enough for Ino to get her point across. Then Naruto got in the way. He still looked shocked that she was even there, even as he stopped her with his bare hands grabbing the Bakken before she could reach Kiba with her fencer-like stab. After all, they had only had a handful of encounters outside of the academy their entire lives. Ino could count on hand the number of conversations they had without anyone forcing them into talking to one another. All of them but two had left Ino annoyed and with a sour taste in her mouth as Naruto grated nerves she wasn't even aware she had at those times. The two that weren't bad were still equally annoying as they involved Ino learning things about herself and her fellow blonde that she hadn't cared to know at the time. Emotional things. Ugh. Ino? What are you doing? Naruto asked, as he stupidly would. He could beat the crap out of Kiba in training, but far be it from her to kick the mutt's ass when he insulted her and insinuated that she was a stalker. What's it look like? I'm going to skewer him with this damn thing. That was probably a little too crude for the proper lady she should be, but she knew they wouldn't care. Heck, she had probably just earned some points with Naruto for her coarse and graphic language. Kiba too, though she didn't care what either of their opinions of her was. We can't let you do that, Naruto said, looking at Shikamaru and Choji with a strange look. We cannot let you hurt Rukia. Wait, what? Naruto threw her back by shoving hard at the Bakken in her hands. She went stumbling back, but she would be damned if she lost her balance and ended up on her ass in front of these losers like some newbie civilian girl. She was a kunoichi in training. Naruto himself leapt back to be at Kiba's side and Shikamaru jumped clear over her with a flip to land in a crouch beside them. Choji stood where he was, watching them with an unreadable expression as Ino ready to go after Kiba again. If you want to lay a single finger on our Rukia, Naruto proclaimed, a fiercer look of determination in his eyes than Ino would have expected, then you'll have to go through us. That got her even more irritated. These unbelievable jerks were still playing their kiddie games. Worst yet, they were involving her in them. Ino raised a Bakken high above her head with both hands and a war cry bursting from her lips. She charged straight at them, and it didn't matter to her which one got in her way now, she was gonna clobber all of them. Naruto and Shikamaru took up the opposition against her, defending against all her strikes as she tried attacking them from every angle. She fell back on the training she had with her parents and the academy in handling kunai like they were short swords. She thrust and stabbed, slashed and hacked, swung and swatted. But they were all either blocked or dodged with at least some effort on their part. Her non-stop offensive had caught the boys off guard and she was better with a wooden sword than all of them, including mostly herself, had expected of her in the heat of the moment. The boys were indeed tired and Shikamaru was the first to get hit as she struck his hand when he tried to block her. If asked, Ino would proudly lie about how it was done on purpose because she liked Shikamaru more than the others. She left him with that as she twisted gracefully past him in order to catch Kiba, who's still being protected by Naruto, as he barely managed to stop her attack in time. The fight between the two of them was more controlled, more theater than actual brawl. Ino kept attacking, giving no quarter, but Naruto was making his own where she gave none. Every now and then he would stop defending Kiba in order to probe at her defenses, but Ino wouldn't let him press the advantage of strength and experience. She had speed and grace over him, as well as her own practiced flexibility. Whenever her fellow blonde knocked her sword off course and tried to press forward with a quick stab or upward slash, Ino would bend out of the way or kick him in the chin with a graceful backward heel touch as she flipped back onto her hands before executing at least 3 more flips to get a safe distance. Then she would be back at him as quick as lightning with a rapid fencer's thrust as her feet barely skimmed the ground from the way she lunged at her opponent. Naruto found those the hardest to defend against. He had to get himself and Kiba out of the way the first few times, but afterward he managed to barely start redirecting the angle of her stab by whirling his Bakken either up or down at just the right moment in her attack to throw her off balance. If he tried to follow up with a sidelong swipe of his Bakken, Ino would bend back, limber in her limbo to safely dodge the strike against her before bringing her own Bakken to play. She slashed it just over or under his wooden sword to try and catch his hands with a speedy sleight. Naruto never fell for those, skidding back from them or skimming his sword against hers, so she would be the first to back off since ruining her nails was the last thing she wanted to do while playing around with them. And that was exactly what she was doing. Playing with the boys. She was actually taking part in their stupid childish games. But not only that, Ino would only admit to herself that she was actually enjoying it. She felt her heart racing and her blood pumping in her veins. This was a different excitement from finding the perfect dress to blend in with the night or convincing her mother to take her to the hair salon with her. Or even getting the perfect pair of shoes to go with a new shuriken set her father bought. This was even better than hearing the latest gossip from her group of gal pals. This was a rush. Ino couldn't remember the last time she had liked something that involved making her sweat. She hated exercise with her mom, lectures on clan jutsu from her dad, and even going for special training with her cousins in the interrogation department. But this was different for some reason. Ino didn't know why, but it was. It made her feel free. Wailing on these idiots was like taking a refreshing step back from everything else in her life. And maybe that was it. It had nothing to do with jutsu, clan secrets, or even the fact that they were exercising. It was just a game to these dorks. A game they seemed to take very seriously, but at the same time not serious at all. As the sweat trickled down from her forehead to her chin, Ino could feel herself grinning as she finally got Naruto with a clever feint. She slipped past him when he thought she was going to attack his right leg. This was nothing. Nothing important. Nothing she would need in the future. She would be just fine in her life, even better in her social life. In fact, if she just dropped the Bakken right then and there before calling them all losers, walking away never to return. She would be. She knew it. They knew it. The universe knew it. This whole thing was as irrelevant as it was exhilarating. It was as stupid as it was fun. It was as much a potential stain to her popularity as it was a blossoming freedom to her stress-filled life. And she knew that if she walked away while that stupid look was on Naruto's face, just as she twirled to get inside his guard, she would be called the victor by the four boys, no matter what happened next. And no one else need know she was ever there to begin with. But damn it if she didn't want vengeance against these idiots for bringing her into their insanity. And she would have it, no matter what. Plus, even if she'd never admit out loud, she liked hanging out with them all like this. Naruto was actually pretty cool once he stopped being so bratty and whiny. Kiba was as sneaky and hilarious as he was steadfast and loyal. Shika and Cho were her boys, through and through. But she'd never admit it aloud. Seeing that dumb look on Naruto's face, Ino noticed very fast that even despite getting the better of him with her little trick, Naruto Uzumaki was not without tricks of his own. That Bakken of his was redirected so fast that it ripped a hole straight through his bathrobe, which, this close-up, looked less like an actual bathrobe and more like a colorless haori, which she realized it was, and thrust right at her collarbone. Naruto, even caught unawares, was still in the fight and aiming to indirectly make Ino drop her Bakken or be forced to do it from the pain it would bring her, swinging the much heavier than it looked sword around for another few clashes against him. He already sent shockwaves through her arms every time she met him head-on, and she had stopped it a while ago. Ino wasn't sure what she could do at that moment. She refused to give up and have them know they had her beat. And she certainly wasn't about to be defeated by the dead last of their class when she was the cream of the crop in their year. So, Ino did what any self-respecting shinobi would have done then. It was only natural. After all, it was the oldest trick in the book and no one would fault her for it in the end because it was so obvious a method that they seldom had to rely on it. She cheated. Oh, did she cheat? Ino already had her Bakken lowered because she thought she could get a skyward slice off on Naruto to make him back off. This would have separated him from her real target, Kiba and Yuzuka. It would have also left Kiba defenseless and stunned by her quick thinking. Now, with her Bakken skirting the ground anyway, Ino dug it in even deeper as she surged her arms in a crest and thrust forward at Naruto. The dirt from the ground went flying at him and he had no way to stop it as he took a face and neck full of dirt, grains and gravel. Naruto sputtered uncontrollably as some got in his mouth and eyes, stumbling back from Ino, even as she felt a little sorry for the cheap tactic. Then he started swinging wildly around at everything, blinded by her stunt, and she was annoyed all over again. Didn't he know how to just give up and rub the dirt from his eyes? Geez, he was as thick-headed as he was determined and equally irritating in the fact that he refused to simply let her win. She had never been so agitated in a fight before. She had also never been pit against him like she was against Ami or Hinata. Naruto was always sparring Kiba or Sasuke when they practiced any fighting skills. Even when they mixed things up, she would always get someone like Shino or Hayden, while Naruto fought Ami or Naoko. Now that he was disoriented, Ino had no trouble taking Naruto out in less than a few moves. She kicked up even more dirt just to be sure the blonde idiot wasn't getting back in the game anytime soon. And for added measure she hit his sword hand, his left one, and then caught him in the side before delivering the finishing blow, as when he doubled over in pain, she brought the wooden sword down from over her head with all her might on his exposed back. Naruto went down like a ton of bricks and Ino was left disgustingly sweaty, dirty from her own cheap stunt, and so out of breath that her throat was dry. But damn if she didn't feel good about every last bit of it. Now Ino was struck surprised by just how hoarse her voice was to her own ears. And horrified by how her hair had come undone from her perfect ponytail to fall around her face as she bent over with a hand on her knee. Yet still, she didn't lower the Bakken any more than necessary as she pointed it threateningly at Naruto's sprawled body. "Stay down, you blonde dimwit, or else I'll knock you back into the dirt." Naruto groaned, rubbing at his back, but Ino had the feeling that he was just being overdramatic despite how hard she had hit him. Naruto always gave her that feeling. Like anything he did was either way more or way less than he let on. I'm down, I'm down. But you're blonde yourself, Ino. Isn't it the pot calling the kettle black, Dadabeo? She couldn't help it. Couldn't help herself. She kicked him. Repeatedly. He just got under her skin so easy. Easier than Shikamaru. Easier than Sakura. Easier even than Kiba. Naruto just somehow knew how to needle her nerves with the smallest of effort. She was sure he wasn't aware of the ability, but damn it if she cared. He was always like this, and if he was never going to change, then neither was she. And she refused to believe what her mother said about the annoying ones being the perfect ones. If she started having feelings for this blonde jackass, Ino was sure she'd take a kunai to the neck immediately afterward by choice. She realized that she was now kicking him so hard and so much that dust was starting to fly. So she kicked more dirt at him for good measure. Not at his face or anything, she wasn't trying to be insulting or anything, she just wanted to get her message across not to piss her off again today. The dirt flew over him and dispersed into the air around them. Choji and Shikamaru were standing off to the side watching her and Naruto with mixed expressions. Choji looked sad for Naruto's plight, but reluctant to come to his aid and earn her wrath. That big fat chicken. Shikamaru looked vaguely annoyed by both of them, as though they were taking too long to have a lover's spat or something. When she glared at him though it wiped the look from his face as he raised his hands in surrender. The wimp. And she came to the realization that she had completely lost track of Kiba, the true target of her initial assault. He was nowhere to be found and had left poor Naruto as the punching bag first chance he got. That total coward. At least Naruto took his lumps without running away and head on. He barely even complained about things afterward. His three friends, however, were more mice than ninja as they left him to suffer alone. The wusses. As the dust began to settle around them, there was still bits and pieces swirling through the air. Choji fanned some of it away from himself and Shikamaru. Well, that sure was something flashy. Never expected Ino to get the better of Naruto like that. Especially after the last few weeks we've been at this. But I wonder what should I do? Choji asked the air, but it was a voice behind him that gave the answer. You shouldn't even move, came Kiba's voice behind him as Choji and Shikamaru's eyes widened in surprise and shock. They had completely forgotten about Kiba when they began seeing Ino beat the everlasting crap out of Naruto in a show of rage. The Bakken slip skillfully to his neck was a great touch as well. Kiba had gotten better at subtlety, it seemed. Ino, seeing Kiba emerge from behind the wider Akimichi boy, was again seething in rage. How had he even gotten over there? And when? Ugh, these dorks were actually making her think they might turn out as good ninja, because that kind of stealth and tact took at least half a brain to execute. Ugh. What game are you dolts playing it here? Ino yelled, startling the prone Naruto at her feet. He scrambled away and to his feet a few meters from Ino before he started babbling about some books or something like she hadn't just thoroughly beaten him to the ground. Kami, how resilient was he? He often brushed off rough sparring matches at the academy, but Ino knew that in her fury, she had pulled no punches or kicks as it were. As he went on and on and on about bleach or cleansing or something about a deathberry, Ino was too worked up to listen anymore to him blabber like he was. She conked him on the head so fast he had no chance to do anything but drop to the ground and whine about it, rolling around as he cursed her with every colorful word he knew. And apparently he knew plenty. Far more than she did. She'd have to use a few of those sometime. Shikamaru was walking up to them now, a book in his hand instead of a wooden sword as he approached. His expression was back to that lazy unenthusiastic look he gave everything when he felt too bothered to do anything about anything. Slowly but surely the excitement drained from Ino too, as it must have from Shika. She became more aware of the dirt on her clothes and in her hair, as well as the matted condition of both. Here, Shikamaru said with a long-suffering sigh as he handed her the book, see for yourself. This is the reason we're out here. Ino snatched the book away and threw the Bakken back at Choji, who caught it with a little difficulty. Flipping through the pages, Ino was initially disgusted that they were reading manga like a bunch of street urchins. Then she remembered Naruto was a street urchin and figured it was his bad habits rubbing off on them. However, she cared very little at this point who was rubbing off on who. All she cared about was the fact that she noticed one thing. Naruto was finally off the ground and got a book to the face as Ino threw it away over her shoulder in utter disgust. Adebayo. Ow, ow, ouch. He was back on the ground with an injured face. Ino had her hands on her hips, lips set in a thin scowl, what is this trash? No wonder you're all a bunch of losers reading and acting out garbage like this. There aren't any strong female leads in there. It's just a bunch of sweaty hairy guys hacking each other to pieces with swords. Where are the women? Where is the art? Where is the romance? Shikamaru appeared to be at the end of his rope. I can't say much for romance, because there is none in the series as far as we've read. However, there is a cast of female personalities in the books. Not in the volume 1 just gave you, but we have plenty with different women showcased in them. If you want strong women, then you're looking for Yoruichi Shimin and Sui Feng of the Stealth Force. Joji came rushing over with another volume for her to look at. She went through this one more carefully as it displayed a woman who looked to be from Kumagakure. She liked the woman's character in the story, easygoing and casual as she fought against another woman who looked like an older form of her friend Naoko. Ino had to read the next volume in order to find out what happened in the actual fight itself. This volume covered displaying the petite woman, Sui Feng, in a fierce and deadly pose, unlike her dark-skinned counterpart, who had been on display in a sexy and flexible position of a sprawled low cat crouch. It wasn't until chapter 157 that Ino finally was able to read the fight between this Yuruchi and Sui Feng characters. And it was epic. The women threw around their martial skill and power like it was no one's business. Ino was honestly impressed that female characters were handled so well in such a clearly man-majority manga series. I like it, Ino declared, tossing the book at Shikamaru, who caught it before it could impact with his face. They're strong, but also beautiful. Tough, yet elegant. They're clearly the Hokage of the series. That old man was strong in his showing against his two students, but the two women are clearly just as strong. I mean, they even run the ninja from what I read. She knew she was probably way off base with her assumptions, but she didn't care. It was obvious the two ladies of the Deathberry series manga were top-tier fighters. Captain and commanders they had been called. She hoped she'd get to that kind of authority one day. Or at least be able to retire without missing an arm or having some ugly scars on her face or something. Naruto was off the ground again by this time, having brushed the dirt off his clothes and from his eyes. His cerulean blue eyes weren't even red from the dirt. They were still perfectly clear and deep with light dancing in them as Naruto stared at her. Ino shook her head as she forced herself to scowl lightly at him. His eyes were always so nice and bright, but she'd never let him know that. They're not the Hokage, Dadabeo. The old man is. Old man Yamamoto, he's called. Yuruchi and Sui Feng, well, they're in charge of the ninja, but old man Yama commands everyone. Naruto was saying, but Ino was ignoring him for the most part, whilst Shikamaru and Choji tried to shut him up to keep her content. She scoffed at them. Boys were so stupid. As if she needed them handling her with kid gloves. If she wanted to scream and yell at them for being the knuckle-dragging nimrods they clearly were, then it was her prerogative as a woman to do so. Her mother had taught her that much. No matter, she was not her mother's daughter for just any reason. If they wanted to handle her with kid gloves, then she'd make them regret it. You idiots clearly need a woman's touch around here if you're going to keep this up. Ino pointed a finger at Naruto dramatically. She shoved her way in between the three boys as Kiba was preoccupied with feeding Akamaru before getting in Naruto's face, elbowing Choji and Shikamaru away from him. Poking her fellow blonde in the chest, Ino continued on with her tirade. You dopes are all brawn and no finesse. Those women were clearly on par if not stronger than the men in those books. And I just showed you that I can take any of you on any day of the week. Clearly you need me to help mold you hulking bricks into fine specimens of fashion and battle. The only guy I saw worth my attention in those books looked prettier than me, damn it. You mean Yumichika? Naruto asked before Ino once again got in his personal space. She poked his chest again before grabbing a hold of his white haori. She felt the material between her fingers. It was thin and scratchy. Ugh, they needed so much work. And what the hell is this? Cotton? No, I don't want to know. It's all wrong. And why is it only the one layer with no internal fabric of color? This piece of crap is bland and tasteless. You men have no sense of style or even dress. It's a wonder you four can dress yourselves each morning. Ino shot a look of loathing at all of them before turning back to Naruto, the clear ringleader of their merry band of misfits. You, Naruto Uzumaki, are going to show me where you morons bought these travesties before I vomit. Then I'm going to smack the tailor who had the audacity to not only let you leave their store with this, but to actually charge you money for this poor-ass bedsheet design. I could have made you at my own kitchen table in less than 30 minutes. Naruto gulped in fear as she glared daggers up at him. Was he actually taller than her now? When had that happened? The last time she was this close to him, he had barely been able to meet eye to eye with her. Geez, her irk was rising higher and higher with everything today. And for my expert eye and help in transforming you rejects into decent-appearing members of society, you Naruto Uzumaki are going to buy me a very specific tailor-made exact replica of Yuruchi Shimen's outfit from that book. I could not take my eye off it. What? Naruto yelped, but Ino was ignoring him. No. That's wrong of me. Ino decided, waving a hand dismissively, I want my outfit with a purple top instead of orange. Orange is just no. Purple suits me much better. Ino said with a shake of her head, even as she cast a nauseated look at Naruto's orange jumpsuit under his sheath-thin white haori. What the? Hey. What's wrong with orange, Dadabeo? Chapter 4. Paragon of their school days. Is that really him? It can't be. He's changed so much, we just saw him a few weeks ago. Hey, he's not wearing a lot of orange today, I mean, it's on the inside of that white robe, and that sash is orange, but still. And what's with the black and white bathrobes? The bathrobes? I'm more worried about the Bakken he's carting around like some kinda gangster. Naruto stepped through the academy building entrance with an air of nonchalant ignorance. The courtyard, along with the hallways, were quite crowded with students and instructors. His freshly pressed stark white haori gently billowing in his wake. The Bakken he carried around these days rested at his right hip, safely tucked away into the orange obi sash. Although, despite some things about him changing, Naruto's hair was still unkempt as he self-consciously scratched at the back of his head. He was used to the stares and whispers of people talking behind his back, however, the way they were talking was now totally different than a few weeks ago. It was no longer with an air of disgust and annoyance, but now folks were regarding him with interest and curiosity, things Naruto had never garnered from his peers ever before. Is that the same Uzumaki? Yeah, he doesn't look violent. Nor like the brat that used to run through the halls. And is he quiet? Yeah, never seen him like this before. Maybe he's not so bad after all. Hey Uzumaki. Good morning. Good morning Marino. Naruto greeted the older kid back, being sure to wave and smile so all the others could see him. The others looked at this curiously, thrown for a loop by a less juvenile Naruto Uzumaki. Ino would be so proud once she heard about his progress. Ha! I always knew he could be cool. He just needed to calm down a bit. Well, better you than me for finding out. Naruto continued to smile and greet others who dared to welcome him for the day. He could hear many of the students whispering amongst themselves. This was quite a shock to him, and he found it odd to endure murmurs that ranged from neutral to even positive about him. Normally it was brat this and orange nuisance that. However, his personality never did not allow him to simply grow depressed about what they said. It had only ever made him more determined to prove them all wrong. And now he was finally doing just that. Reaching the door to his prospective classroom, Naruto stopped just short of entering as he took a deep breath to steady himself. Today would change everything about how people saw him and how Naruto saw himself. No longer would Naruto Uzumaki be known as the orange brat of Konoha, but instead as something new. Something greater. Throwing open the classroom door, Naruto stood proud and tall in the doorway as he made his dramatic entrance. He could tell that he had caught them all unaware as all eyes cut sharply toward his way and silence became deafening to the room. Naruto grinned as he marched forward a few steps, placing himself decidedly in the room and where everyone inside could gaze upon his new appearance. He hadn't wanted to return until he was completely sure, after all. Now, after only a month, he was without a single doubt. His resolve was stronger than steel. And now, right then and there, everyone would know it. After seeing that everyone had settled a little bit from his sudden appearance, Naruto spoke. I would like to introduce myself to my classmates. I am Naruto Uzumaki, rank of captain and leader of the 5th division. You may not have seen me over the course of the last few weeks to a month, and that is understandable. While you all have been getting your education, I had to look inside myself for a little learning. I learned who I was and what I wanted to do from this point onward. So, you can all just call me Captain Naruto from now on, Databeo. Naruto gave them all a casual salute with his pointer and middle finger. His cheeky grin was obvious to all as it displayed just enough of his white teeth to be seen as charming. All of the students gathered in the classroom were deadly silent for a few moments before they began murmuring at the sudden affirmation of the rumor. Some of them had thought Uzumaki had moved away to another village. Others had thought he was taken by a rival ninja populace. And even still a few had believed Naruto had disappeared to gain wisdom from a sage. Those last few were right, well, kind of right, at any rate. Captain Naruto, huh? Well, Uzumaki sure went and got full of himself. Maybe so yet, look at him, Ashiro. He's dressed different and even seems to carry himself differently I mean, Captain Naruto might have become stronger in his weeks away from the academy. Whoa, Uzumaki sure knows how to make a return to school, never seen anyone come back from a whole month away looking so different. This will need further observation. Black shades reflected light as they focused in on Naruto still standing easily and casually at the front of the classroom. Captain Naruto, sir. Good morning to you. Kiba greeted Naruto with a cheeky grin of his own and a proper salute. Heh. Captain Uzumaki. Over here. Choji joined in on the antics, good morning sir. Yup. Good morning Kiba. Choji. Naruto chuckled effortlessly, never thinking that he'd cause such a stir so early. A few words and some new clothes were doing more than he could have ever thought. You can all just call me Captain Naruto or Captain Uzumaki from now on. Heh. Whichever one you feel more comfortable with addressing to me. Ugh Naruto, why are you so troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, but smirked as he saw a few others daring to welcome Naruto back to the classroom. Namely folks like Hinata waving meekly and Marino Yutani just saying hello. It was then that Naruto's alert senses warned him of an incoming danger. His eyes darted upward. His hand flew in front of his face, catching a blunted kunai between two fingers that had been hurled his way from within the clot of students who were seated at their desks. Standing within the rows of students was a fair-skinned beauty. Her teal eyes were narrowed upon Naruto's form, pinning him in place with just her gaze. Long pale blonde hair swayed back behind her in the ponytail she wore it in, reaching around mid-back. The bangs framing the right side of her face didn't hide her glare from Naruto's vision, making him feel quite small under such intensity. Wearing a black backless, sleeveless undershirt that was easily seen from the opening of her purple overshirt with two white straps on each shoulder, the girl stood strong with a hand on the large beige sash around her waist above her hips. Black stretch pants were peeking from beyond the desk, just visible enough to tell Naruto that this girl was in full gear today before she had assaulted him. He suspected that she was even wearing the pair of lightweight brown shoes, which allowed for stealth and easy use of speed techniques. This girl was Ino Yamanaka, and she did not look pleased. Her small hoop earrings jingled as she began to address Naruto directly, instead of throwing more deadly weapons his way. That is no way for a captain to act. Ino snapped impatiently, her face set in that feminine annoyance only displayed upon a particularly vexing male. If you're gonna go around bragging that you're a leader, then act like one. We don't need fancy speeches. Actions speak louder than words. Show some humility and self-respect. Stand tall and enter, then get the hell to your seat. That is how a true captain should be. Unlike Naruto, who the class was now having fairly mixed reactions to with his recent changes, Ino had no such reputes to her popularity with her peers. Cheers and applause rang out as the other girls of the class cheered Ino on for taking the new Naruto down a peg. The boys who liked Ino and didn't quite respect Naruto yet nodded to Ino's words as they applauded her. That's right, Ino. Make him show some respect. But show, Yamanaka, telling Uzumaki how it is. You're right, Ino, as always. Naruto stood thoughtful for a moment before grinning up at Ino, giving her the same casual salute as before. You're right, Ino, as per usual. A leader is one leading the way for others to follow. Good thinking, Dadabeo. Ino nodded back at Naruto even while basking in the attention of their fickle classmates, who were still hyped over her deconstruction of Naruto's new confidence. However, Ino was not as vain as she had once been. She watched Naruto closely as he made his way up to the highest row, which also happened to be the furthest in the back of the classroom. She noticed how he stopped for a moment to look at her shoes. Ino didn't understand why. Her shoes were just the simple brown pair he had gotten for her a few weeks ago. They were light and made it easy to run and sneak around. She liked the shoes better than the shinobi combat sandals, at any rate. Shikamaru was also watching Naruto, but he was keeping an eye on Ino as well. Far be it for the class princess to show anyone that she was actually hanging out with someone like Naruto on a daily basis. Ino obviously didn't want her reputation and public image ruined by being nice to Naruto in public, much less their classroom where all the girls Ino liked to hang out with were in one place. HMPH, how troublesome. Ino's eyes caught onto how Naruto's robes had changed since last she saw him. No longer was he wearing the solid white sash she had led him to purchase, but now it was replaced with an orange obi sash that had black stripes toward the ends. And the inside of his haori had changed as well, because Ino was damn sure that when they had purchased the long coat, the inside of it was colored a mellow turquoise, close in hue to her own beauty eye color, rather than the garish bright orange he had apparently changed it to behind her back. The nerve of that idiot. Almost immediately after Naruto had taken his seat next to Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba, their instructor, Haruka-sensei had entered the room with a pleasant expression. He greeted the class warmly, and they returned the greeting just as well. Haruka smiled up at all of them, however, he groaned silently to himself when he saw that Naruto had finally made a return to the classroom. Not because Naruto was attending, but because he was still wearing that ridiculous getup as the blonde had been for the past few weeks. Haruka hadn't even seen him buy the damn thing, but it appeared that Naruto had purchased another one with some added changes to the original. As much as it pained Haruka to admit it, Naruto really was one of the only people he knew who could pull off all that orange. Naruto. Haruka roared with the might of a lion, where the hell have you been? We've been going over important need-to-know information and exercises for the past few weeks if you want to pass your exams. Haruka-sensei. Naruto waved Haruka's concerns off, I'll be fine. I've been doing some highly important training of my own for the last month I've been away. I've become way stronger than I was when you last saw me. HMPH, Haruka sniffed, his expression prim and tight, is that so? Sasuke-Uchiha had entered the classroom, setting all the girls on edge as they fawned over him. Naruto smirked back at Haruka, darn straight. My training took me to whole new levels of awesome. Before a few weeks ago, I didn't even know half the moves I've learned were even possible. Sasuke moved through the class after greeting Haruka properly. He was just about to take his seat when Haruka spoke up again. Then you won't mind giving the class a demonstration of these moves, you called them. I'm very interested in seeing if you've actually been doing more than reading comics when you could have been learning with everyone else here in class. Sasuke had a bad feeling about this. Naruto slammed a hand to the desk, startling a few of his peers, of course. I'll knock the pants off anyone here. Anytime, any place. Iruka turned to Sasuke, who looked like a startled deer by the way his teacher was now staring at him. Sasuke, would you mind helping to showcase Naruto's new skills in combat or lack thereof, later, if possible? I'd like for you two to give us a sparring demonstration for Taijutsu practice session today. Before the Uchiha student could even get a word in edgewise, Naruto slammed his hand to the desk again. Sasuke. You want me to go up against Sasuke with all my new awesome super techniques? You've gotta be kidding me, Dadabeo. Instead of addressing Iruka-sensei as he should have, Sasuke turned back to stare up at the back of the class, where the blonde annoyance was currently sitting. And just what is that supposed to mean? Naruto crossed his arms over his chest and put on a strained expression, as though it would pain him to have to explain anything to Sasuke Uchiha. You just don't get it, do you? Naruto shook his head and gave a sigh of long suffering. You and me? We were equals before I left class on my own amazing super self-imposed training session, but now there's just no comparison. Idiot. Sakura Haruno bellowed, making some students wince at the volume of her voice. You make it sound like you swam across seas and climbed mountains acquiring ancient knowledge, or something. Yeah. Another of the girls shouted, now roused to anger, all you did was a couple of weeks to probably lounge around watching television. Don't compare yourself to my Sasuke. Your Sasuke. Fine, our Sasuke. Marginally better. Thank you. My self-training might not have taken me out of the village, Naruto said with his arms still crossed, but it did afford me a boost in skill and strength. I'm at least 10 times stronger than before, Dadabeo. That's why I've acquired the rank of captain. You dummy, you made up that rank to make yourself sound cooler. Sakura snapped back at the blonde moron. Don't act like IT Washington some kind of hard-earned promotion. Naruto, stop pretending to be something you're obviously not. Another Sasuke fangirl yelled, beside herself with fury on behalf of her crush. Sakura turned to Ino, who by now usually jumped on Naruto as well whenever he thought he was better than Sasuke. Ino. Say something here. Naruto thinks he can compete with Sasuke. Ino blinked from where she was leaned over the desk, trying to convince Choji to let her borrow volume 23 so she could finally catch up to them all in the series. Huh. Oh. She looked over to where Sasuke was sitting, appearing supremely unconcerned with Naruto's chatter against him, even though his face looked pinched. Sasuke is a big boy. I'm sure he can take care of himself. In fact, he doesn't seem worried at all to me. So really, who even cares? Sakura and all the other girls of the class gasped in unison. They were shocked by Ino's dismissive words. Even Sasuke himself arched an eyebrow, knowing that Ino was one of the fangirls who screamed the loudest wherever he walked in a room. Normally she was one of the most volatile tempers in class, leading the charge on any who dared to disrespect Sasuke's name without the slightest hesitation. Ino had even once thrown Marino Hinamori through a window just because he had said Sasuke wasn't all that great. Marino never took another window seat since that day. While the class's Uchiha source of controversy was busy feeling sorry for poor Marino Hinamori, Sakura had gained a smirk on her face. She had figured out Ino's game. Ha! Sakura crowed, a confident look on her face as she peered up at Ino. I've got you pegged, Ino pig. You're just trying to play it cool. Pretending you don't care. Using positive reinforcement so you can impress Sasuke. Well, you're fresh out of luck. Did I give Sasuke a candy bar or something? Ino asked offhandedly, glancing over to see that Sasuke's head had turned toward her at the mention of getting a candy bar. No, I did not. But you did offer encouragement through dismissal. I'm smarter than I look. Sakura sniffed, turning her nose up at her rival. Well, that doesn't take much effort, hopefully, Ino muttered, just loud enough for Sakura to hear. What did you say? Sakura seethed, but Ino pretended to ignore the pink-haired girl. Ugh, Ino. Stop trying to be cool. Bruno, you could only dream of being half as cool as I am. Ino shot back smoothly, making Sakura growl in anger. Ino pig. Ino's eye twitched at that one. Billboard brow. Bleach blonde, bimbo. Pink-haired banshee. Iruka watched as the two girls dissolved into a glaring match across the classroom. He sighed as he collected chakra to perform a jutsu he had hoped he won't need so early in the day. But of course, with Naruto finally back in class and all. Shut up, all of ya. Iruka's head grew to the size of a beast, his voice amplified to the extreme as it shook the room. Take your seats and get your books out. Learning starts now, and if you cause any more trouble I'll kick your asses. And just like that, class had begun for the young prospective shinobi of Konoha's Ninja Academy. The lesson was nothing new, as the academy had been teaching about the infrastructure of ninja villages for as long as Iruka could remember. He lectured them on how the ninja system worked, how it was created, and how the squads were organized based on each ninja's talents displayed in the very academy his students were now sitting inside. Iruka-sensei. Iruka pinched the bridge of his nose before even turning to the voice. No, Naruto, you may not be excused for a bathroom break. You'll just end up heckling Yukina-sensei for her lazy eye or something. No, that's not it. Naruto shook his head, looking a bit confused. He hadn't made fun of Yukina-sensei's eye thing for a long time. At least a few months. I wanted to know about the squads. How many are there? Iruka raised an eyebrow at the question, but was happy nonetheless. Naruto rarely paid any lecture its due attention. Maybe he really has changed. Iruka thought about it for a second. As of right now, I believe that only 3 squads are active. Why only 3? Shouldn't we have at least, I don't know, somewhere around 13 active squads at all time? The blonde inquired, looking deeply perplexed. Iruka smiled at Naruto's newly inquisitive nature. Better that the blue-eyed troublemaker has his questions instead of running around the village like a delinquent. No, Naruto, I'm afraid that is not the case here. You see, the village has maybe 10 active squads at any given time, but those squads are made up from Genin level ninja working together. 3 Genin ninja to a team with a Jonin sensei to guide them. Once a Genin of the squad is promoted, they acquire the rank of Chunin. Normally it is then that the squad is broken up, so the new Chunin can be assigned to patrols, village organizations, more dangerous missions, or even to lead Genin ninja into missions on their own merit. The other Genin of the team would then go to where their abilities would best serve the village. However, in rare cases, the squad stay together with the Chunin leading their teammates on missions regularly. Does that make sense to you, Naruto? Naruto's expression was strained, but he nodded to convey he understood. Yeah, I get it. We go from academy students or division members to Genin level ninja or active seated members, if you will. Yes, that's right. Though they are squads, not divisions. Squads usually consists of any number between 3 and 12 shinobi. A division of the village's ninja could be a lot higher. Geez, it's just a reference, Naruto groused, but continued onward even while Iruka was left sputtering. If division members are just people who deal with all the paperwork and everyday duties of the division, then normal civilians and academy students like us could fill that role. Cleaning the building, organizing paperwork, overseeing recruitment, training under-seated members, I mean, Genin shinobi, yeah, so we can totally do all that. Naruto, you're getting off track. Naruto ignored his sensei, nodding to himself. And seated members take on missions. They do all the real work by completing missions before they get promoted through the ranks to something like 5th, 4th, or even 3rd seat of their division. There are no seated positions in the shinobi system. Iruka corrected, looking a little uneasy. Naruto was running with naive ideals. You move up from Genin to Chunin if you've proven yourself ready for the extra responsibility through an exam. Yeah, but my way of thinking makes more sense. Naruto nodded to himself again, caught up in his own little world. It allows more room for error without welcoming a higher level of danger than the person can properly take on, Databeo. Chunin should be ranked between 5th and 3rd seat. No, Naruto. That's not how it goes. The ranks are as follows. Civilian, Academy Student, Genin, Chunin, Special Jonin, Anbu Black Ops, and Hokage. Iruka frowned a bit more than he wanted. People smarter than me and you created this system for shinobi to follow. Well, it's pretty dumb to me. Naruto waved a hand dismissively. Just because a bunch of wrinkled old prunes sat down and made something didn't make it good or meant it withstood the test of time. If there are special Jonin, then why not special Chunin or special Genin? And why do the Anbu rank higher than Jonin? You should be splitting hairs at the lower levels of foundation, not near the top. You can't tell me that the Anbu do something that a Jonin can't do, or that a special Jonin is so much stronger than a Chunin that they deserve their own rank just like that. Naruto Sakura groaned as she banged her head to the desk. The others in the class were muttering about Naruto's stirring arguments, and all she wanted to do was show how smart she was by answering the class question. Sasuke was sure to be impressed by how thoroughly she had memorized the material. Smart girls are sexy. Cha. All I'm saying is we should divide the ranks a little more evenly. Besides, that would make special Jonin into lieutenants, which is kind of understandable if Jonin ninja are captain level. Jonin lead really dangerous missions and also teach Genin squads, right? Iruka rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Yes, Naruto, that's right. Naruto crossed his arms and nodded in self-satisfaction. Then that means that while special Jonin took care of supervising daily operations, the Jonin would do all the really important work while also reporting directly to the Hokage, the head captain or captain commander, if you will. I will not, and I think you need to learn these real facts before dreaming up your own system to govern shinobi affairs, Naruto. Haruka said sternly, his own arms crossed in a much firmer fashion. But then he smiled, glad that Naruto was at least participating in class, who knows. Maybe if you speak to Lord Hokage, he'll even entertain your ideas for more than a few seconds. The other students chuckled at the subtle dig against Naruto by Haruka, but the blonde boy was not deterred. He would speak to the old man about his ideas, but probably not that same day. It was still pretty rough in the making, so Naruto would need time in order to iron out all the details. As the lesson got back on track with its normal pace, Naruto remained quiet for the rest of the afternoon, only answering when he was called upon. Haruka was in a very good mood with Naruto's behavior so well, and even allowed the class to take a 10-minute break, since he was able to get through his lecture earlier than he would have thought. Haruka left the class to prepare the field for weapons practice, while the class was allowed to mingle amongst themselves for the time. "Come on, Choji." Ino stressed, pulling at the chubby boy's arm. "Just let me borrow it." "But I can't." Choji whined, feeling his arm hurt from Ino's strength. "I don't even have it." "Yes you do. You were the one who had it last." The blonde girl accused, "I need to catch up with you guys." "Stop being a jerk. Don't you know you're supposed to give a lady whatever she wants?" "I don't see any ladies around here," Shikamaru muttered, being sure that only Ino and the guys heard him. Ino rounded on him quickly. "You want to repeat that, Nara?" "I'd rather not, thanks. Besides, Choji can't give you something he doesn't have. We keep all the books at Naruto's house so they don't get lost or damaged." "Liar." Ino accused, pointing a finger dramatically at Shikamaru, "You brought volume 17 to the park that one time. And Kiba takes books home all the time." Shikamaru, Choji, and Naruto all rounded on Kiba, who was sweating minutely. "Oh, looks like the jig is up," Akamaru Kiba mumbled weakly to his canine companion, while the others pinned him with glares. "Kiba, you moron. Those books aren't supposed to leave Naruto's house unless we tell each other about it. And that is supposed to be on very rare occasions." Shikamaru sighed as the troublesome mutt would give him a headache over this. "Yeah, man. What if they get lost or stolen while with you? Then we'd be out of volume from the entire collection. That'd be like missing a piece from a puzzle." Naruto shook his head with disapproval. "Hey. Some of us have chores and training when we go home. I need to take the books home if I want to keep ahead of Ino. We all know she's a gossipy shrew when it comes to lording over the likes of us." Kiba defended himself, right up until Ino grabbed him by his fur collar. Akamaru whimpered in fright as Ino got in Kiba's face. "What did you say, you housebroken mutt?" Ino snarled as Kiba wouldn't back down from her. "I called you a shrew, you nosy gossip. All you do is talk about every detail after you've read it. And then you like to talk about who's dating who in the comic. It's not about that or the way they dress. It's an action manga, so why do you feel the need to tell us about how good a wife Rukia will make Renji? Because Renji and Rukia obviously love each other very much, you tasteless swine." Ino snapped back at Kiba, making Akamaru cower in the boy's jacket. "Says the girl called Ino pig. Geez, why don't you just give it a rest arc?" "Ugh." Ino was strangling Kiba, throttling him without mercy, as Choji and Naruto quickly jumped into the mix in order to ensure Ino didn't commit murder. Haruka had returned, and seeing Kiba's pale face with his soul slowly ascending to the afterlife, he was fairly disturbed. Ino was still choking his limp body, with Naruto and Choji off in the corner, clutching each other in fear with many bruises and Naruto having a quickly healing black eye each. Shikamaru had his head down, snoring coming from where he was obviously taking a nap to avoid the situation. The rest of the class was giving the furious Ino wide berth as they watched in fear. Sasuke had Akamaru in his arms, gently petting the dog's fur as he stared at Ino with apprehension. Haruka could only sigh at the scene in front of him. It would seem that despite his thoughts earlier, it was indeed going to be a long day now that Naruto was back in class. Chapter 5. Foundation of Divisions, Part 1. Foundation. Kiba stared ahead of himself at the target dummies that were randomly scattered across the schoolyard for them to practice on. He hated weapons practices. The kunai and shuriken the academy gave them were always at different weight and balance. Each and every time they were dragged out for this torture, Haruka expected them to learn how to pick up a throwing star or knife and instantly feel for its weight and balance before using the ninja tools. Ugh, what Kiba wouldn't give to just be in taijutsu practice already. "Alright. I've got the field all ready for you guys and girls to begin," Mizuki said with a smile on his face. His shoulder-length white hair always gave Kiba the idea he was trying to dye it, mostly because of the light blue hue it had when it caught light. And the guy's smile never reached his green eyes, which were dull and cold. Kiba supposed that came with being a ninja, but didn't like to think about it too often. He didn't want to ponder how the happiness and warmth would one day leave his own eyes. "Kiba Inuzuka." Haruka's voice snapped Kiba out of his thoughts. And suddenly he realized that much more time had passed than he wanted. It was already his turn. "Oh, well," Kiba figured as he rolled up his sleeves and grinned cockily. It seemed it was now time for everyone to get a taste of the awesome that was Kiba and Yuzuka. That was just bad, Kiba. I almost feel sorry for you. Ino said, shaking her head and not bothering to hide her cruel laughter at Kiba's pain. She slapped another helping of healing salve on the cut he had managed to give himself along his shoulder, making Kiba yelp and hiss in pain. Yo, ouch. What the hell are you doing, woman? I'm injured. You have to be more careful. Kiba complained, his whining falling on deaf ears as Ino was the only one among their group of friends who knew how to properly apply the ointment. I'm sorry, all I heard just then was, wah, I'm Crybaby Kiba, and after trying to show off I made myself look like a complete Nimrod before crawling to grovel at Ino's feet for the healing salve she and Hinata Hyuga worked so hard to make. Did I hear you right, little Crybaby Kiba? Because that seemed true to me. Ino replied happily, slapping more balm along Kiba's arm where more cuts and scrapes were. We only just made this stuff a few days ago. We were supposed to show it to my parents to see if it could be sold in the shop, but I guess me and Hinata will just have to use you as our test dummy, like all the ones you didn't hit in practice. Kiba winced when Ino gave unnecessary pats to the paste in order to ensure it was properly setting into his wounds. I hit one. No, Choji threw that one after it flung back at him from where you let it fly. Naruto and Shikamaru threw more when the shuriken clattered at their feet, but Iruka-sensei saw them throw those. He didn't see Choji because he was too busy ducking under the one you flung his way. Ino rolled her eyes. I thought I had it under control this time. They were all so heavy, Kiba said, more to himself than Ino. Ino, however, commented anyway. That's because they were all real this time. If you paid attention in class, you'd remember that Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei told us yesterday that today's practice would be with untampered standard kunai and shuriken. Because we're now halfway into the year and the exams are coming up, damn it, how could I forget? Kiba would have hit himself if he weren't already in such pain. Maybe because you've been spending too much time trying to act cool instead of training. You've fallen behind even Shikamaru and he doesn't even do anything. Instead of getting better, you've actually allowed yourself to get worse by attempting to look great instead of being great. Kiba could only give a sigh of deep suffering. And stop that, you dolt. You need to focus. You're too annoying to end up not being good at anything. I mean geez, just look at Naruto for a prime example. He's 10 times more aggravating than you and he's the best out of our 5. Ino wiped her hands on a towel she had at her side. Then again the others are nearly just as useless as you, even Naruto. Ino clicked her tongue in annoyance. Shikamaru is too lazy to do any exercise. Choji only wants to eat his weight in junk food and make nice with everyone. You can't hit the side of a building with all your showboating and Naruto still can only make clones that look like they've died of an asthma attack. Ugh, why are all you boys so damn useless? You all lack focus and if I had a bamboo stick right about now, I would shove it. Kiba was kind of glad Ino hadn't finished her rant. She could be really graphic when it came to punishing them for what she perceived as damage against her reputation. The reason she didn't get to finish is because both he and Ino spied Naruto have an animated conversation with the third Hokage. Whatever the two were talking about had the leader of their village smiling and Naruto making a lot of over-the-top hand gestures. The SSH, Kiba, Ino whispered under her breath, can you hear them? What are they saying? Kiba gave her the skunk eye, I'm not an actual dog, you know. Despite what people like to say about my family, we are not part animal or dogs given human form. Idiot, Ino whacked him over the head, I asked because you do have impressive hearing, part mud or not. I can read lips, but Naruto is always talking too fast or mixing up his words. Now tell me what they're saying. Alright geez, you're such a pain, Kiba sighed as he focused intently on Naruto and the third Hokage. He steadied his mind on them and them alone. And you'll have to limit yourself so as not to hurt others. You have a good foundation of skills now, and with any luck you'll pass the exams with the rest of your year. The third Hokage's voice was aged and wise, like that of a grandfather who loved all his grandchildren equally. That's no fun. Naruto whined, a pitiful look on his face, head captain, you're punishing me for no reason. It's not my fault if I'm more awesome than everyone around me. Be that as it may, the Hokage's voice brokered no argument, you will be at the Hokage building after school today, Naruto. If you are truly to become a captain upon your graduation, then you'll follow my orders to the letter. And if not you'll receive nothing but a sound thrashing. Naruto's face paled and he quivered before the stern look on the elder ninja's face. Okay. I'll be there. Please don't roast me alive. The Hokage tipped his hat to hide his smile as he turned toward the exit. Good, then I'll see you there. You'll have dinner with my family today, so save your appetite. Naruto watched the Hokage's exit with a moody look on his face. He crossed his arms over his white coat. HMPH, making me hold back to a fourth of my own awesomeness after today, I can't believe that old fart. The temperature rose noticeably and Naruto flinched in panic as he offered up apologizes to a Hokage that was no longer there. The room returned to normal, making the blonde breathe a sigh of relief. Ino, behind Kiba, only shook her head. Well, that sure was weird. You're telling me? I never knew Naruto was so close to the Hokage. Just when you think you know a guy. Not that, you dolt. I was talking about their conversation. Ino snapped, but Kiba seemed to be ignoring her. And again, the Hokage didn't even seem to notice that Naruto was referring to him as head captain. Not that it matters really. The position of Hokage is pretty much the same as that of the head captain. And what about Naruto's training? Ino questioned, resting her hands atop Kiba's head. It was supposed to help him perform the clone jutsu, but it failed. He still can't use it to make passable clones. So why would the third Hokage want Naruto to limit himself? Did he really get that strong over such a short amount of time? Definitely a lot more questions than answers, that's for sure. Kiba got to his feet and stretched, feeling the cuts and scrapes from earlier twitch with barely noticeable pain. He then took a second to stare at Ino. I'm kind of surprised you knew about Naruto's training, though. He didn't even tell me. It must be the fact that he brought you that outfit. To think Naruto's losing his mind to a girl already caught. Ino had punched him in the stomach, her face bright red as her eyes blazed with an embarrassed fury the likes of which Kiba had never seen before today. The other hand was trying to her clothes, purple top and all. Naruto had gifted her with a set at a request more like demand before leaving for his training. If not for her attitude and fickle nature, Ino would have been a perfect woman. She was already a fair-skinned beauty with teal eyes and long platinum blonde hair she kept in a ponytail that reached just down past her shoulder blades. The bangs framing the right side of her face didn't hide her beauty or the glare she was now pinning Kiba under to make him feel small and stupid. She wore a black backless sleeveless undershirt that was easily seen from the opening of her purple overshirt with 2 white straps on each shoulder. Ino stopped trying to cover herself in order to stand up straight and appear unaffected and strong. She placed a hand on the large beige sash around her waist above her hips. Black stretch pants were tied against Ino's legs, trailing down to disappear under a pair of beige leg warmers and simple brown shoes. In this attire, Ino looked every bit the part of Yoruichi Shimin, ex-commander of the Stealth Force and captain of the 2nd Division. In fact, that was exactly what Ino had specified when she throttled Naruto and made him purchase her outfit. Of course, when Ino's parents had found out about the whole thing, they told Ino had gotten herself a boyfriend. That had been quite the distraction from their training. Unfortunately, it ended with Ino beating them all to a pulp for even being there to witness her parents come to the conclusion that Naruto and she were now dating. Lucky for Naruto, he had already left on his own self-imposed training and so did not incur Ino's wrath, which lasted a few days before she cooled off and they as her friends stopped making jokes about 2 blondes sitting in a tree, making a dozen blonde babies. That had gotten them a sound beating that took 3 days to recover from. Naruto told us about his trip before he left. You simply forgot, moron. And if you ever bring that incident with these clothes up again I'll kill you. Was all she said before she turned on heel and walked away with an aura of fury surrounding her. Kids made quick to clear a path of her wrath. Kiba sighed. He would be walking on eggshells for a week now. You should stop antagonizing her. Otherwise, she'll be the death of you. Choji said as he quietly snacked on his bag of chips. Kiba and Shikamaru were sitting on the sidelines as the others were called up for their sparring matches against one another. All 3 had already participated, with Shikamaru and Choji fighting each other to a stalemate and Kiba having scraped up a win against Shino. Some of the girls had fought as well. Hinata and Ino battled it out in an unusually fierce manner. Hinata went into the fight with aggression from who knows where, trying her best to beat Ino. The blonde girl put up a good fight but eventually lost thanks to how aggressive Hinata was. Ino walked off the mat muttering about how she wasn't stealing anyone's man, but no one understand what she was talking about. Or maybe Hinata will kill her first. You can only hope. Shikamaru said in a hushed tone. Honestly, I've never seen that girl so fired up before. She really did a number on Ino. I thought for sure that Iruka-sensei or Mizuki-sensei would have to get her off Ino with the way she was attacking. Hinata scares me a little, Kiba admitted, but then shook his head to get back on topic, but Ino makes snipping with her so easy. She has a bad attitude and needs to be brought down a peg more often. Kiba, she is our friend. We should like her for who she is. Choji said, ever the nice guy if there ever was one. Though Kiba noticed that the chubbier boy wasn't making even the least polite gesture to share his snacks. Because no one got between Nakamichi and his snacks. I agree with Choji on this one. Ino is a girl. And like women, girls are troublesome. All they do is nag and make you buy them things and force you to agree with them. You have to do what they say. That's just the way the world works. It's hierarchy at its finest. Shikamaru sighed, scratching under his chin. Yeah, but Hinata isn't like that. Naruto said as he came up beside them. He stopped short of sitting with his friends, instead taking the time to do stretches as he would probably be called up soon for his spar against Sasuke. Me and her don't talk much, but she seems really nice and quiet. She gets all red when I'm around her though, so I think she's allergic to something I'm wearing or something. Maybe it's my plants back home. Naruto took the chance between stretches to sniff himself. Maybe the pollen or something gets on me before school. Yeah, that sounds about right. The others only gave him deadpan looks as he went ignored. Naruto went back to stretching, bringing his right arm across his body and moving with a groan. But I have to agree with Kiba on this one. Ino is really bossy and has a huge problem with being vain. I mean, we're supposed to be her friends and she still acts like a snob around us. I try to be really nice to her and all she does is hit us. The cold chill ran down the spines of the boys as they all stood up ramrod straight. Behind them, they could feel the eyes of a predator about to rip the throat of its prey out. I had no idea you boys felt I was such a burden. Ino spoke in a slow and deliberate tone. Naruto felt her hand on his shoulder like the claw of a beast. He turned mechanically to her, seeing that she was actually not glaring at him, but smiling sweetly. A little too sweetly. Perhaps I can stand to be a bit nicer to you all. She stared deeply into Naruto's eyes, as if trying to suck out his soul. Especially you, Naruto. He gulped. He didn't like the sight of Ino. It unnerved him. That is, Ino said slowly before smiling brightly at him and batting her eyelashes, if you buy me this really cute ribbon I saw the other day. It looks just like the type that Yurichi has around her neck. The boys all face faulted. Of course, Ino would need gifts to mellow her out. Ino then rolled her eyes, dropping the sugary sweet smile she had on her face. Geez, I'm not that bad, you boys need me to kick you in gear. None of you would train half as hard if I didn't nag you. Especially you, Shikamaru. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief that Ino wasn't going to kill them for talking behind her back. The training and stuff is completely different than what we're talking about. We're talking about how you hit us even though we're nice to you. You smacked me upside the head when I bought you that outfit you're wearing. She smacked him upside the head right then, before putting him in a chokehold with a murderous expression. Don't say that so loud, you idiot. I already have my parents thinking you're my boyfriend. I don't want any of our classmates thinking I'd date a loser like you. Naruto glared right back at her, even though he couldn't breathe. Well, I wouldn't go out with you anyway. Even if I was paid, Dadabeo. You're mean and a snob. I'm nice to you, and all you do is insult me and try to kill me. I said I'd be nicer from now on, though she was still cutting off his supply of oxygen. You could start with letting him breathe, Ino. Shikamaru drawled dryly, watching as Naruto's soul floated out of his mouth and his face went purple. Ino blinked twice before dropping her fellow blonde like a sack of potatoes. Kiba and Choji moved quickly, stuffing Naruto's soul back into his body. The blonde came back to life, gasping for sweet, sweet air like there was no tomorrow. Ino didn't apologize for nearly killing him, deciding that her freshly polished nails were more important than his life at the moment. Despite everything though, Naruto knew that Ino was their friend. If he had been anyone else, there would have been no return from people even dreaming that the two of them were dating. Poor Konogi, he would forever be dearly missed. Let's have Naruto Uzumaki face off against Sasuke Uchiha for the final sparring session. Naruto, here goes your chance to prove yourself. From the crowd, Naruto and Sasuke took to the center of the training hall, both stepping onto the sparring mat from opposite ends. Sasuke looked at Naruto standing there with a smile on his face. After all the boasting that Dope had done earlier that day, Sasuke wanted nothing more than to wipe that smile off his loser face. The blue-eyed captain watched as Sasuke approached the center of the mat. The two made dramatic eye contact with each other and Naruto saw the Uchiha smirk at him, as if to say that he couldn't be beaten. Naruto only smiled back as he walked over to Sasuke. As he moved toward the last of the Uchiha, the blonde discarded his captain's Haori, throwing it to Hinata, whose face went crimson red upon clumsily catching it. She dimly noticed that the Haori was exceptionally long for what was common about them. Normally the thin and coat-like attire would go no further than the knees, but from what she saw of Naruto's Haori showed that it stopped around the ankles. Hinata also took note of the bottom hem of the garment, where there was an alternating pattern of back circles and diamonds. In the center of the Haori was a black rhombus with the kanji for the number 5. Hinata looked up to where Naruto and Sasuke were settling into fighting stances to begin their sparring match. She was curious to what the 5 meant on the jacket. But that was when she got her first look at Naruto's new attire without the Haori obstructing her view. It made her gasp in shock. Was her Naruto wearing the garment of dead souls? It might not have been obvious to many since the practice had fallen out of time since the first great shinobi war, but the Shihakishin was still employed in the funerals of highly respected and noble people to this day as a time-honored tradition. For Naruto to be wearing one so casually, so boldly. Well, it basically meant that he was dressed to die at any moment. For a ninja, it made for the perfect bit of situational irony that was not lost on the Hyuga clan heiress, but it still worried her to see her crush and all-time favorite blonde wearing the black robes with white garments underneath. At least he still added his flair to it, she thought in a bid to keep her nerves from doing her in. The orange obi sash was a nice touch and definitely screamed Naruto Uzumaki. Iruka-sensei raised a hand in order to signal that the fight would begin. The two had long since refused to make the seals for confrontation and reconciliation. Instead, the two merely nodded in acknowledgement of each other. "Don't think I'll go easy on you, Sasuke. Just because we're rivals and all," Naruto said while sliding into a relaxed stance. It confused Hinata, as she had never seen this stance from Naruto or anyone else before. She was evidently not the only one confused by it, as her peers around her began muttering amongst themselves about Naruto's new fighting stance and what type of fighting style would come from it. The casual posture suggested invitation, and even Sasuke had blinked upon seeing it. Naruto's stance was like an open invite for Sasuke to challenge him, as if to say that the Uchiha would come to him and lose at his leisure. "You and I are rivals. Someone should have told me," Sasuke replied, then smirked even harder. "I would have let them know that I don't lower myself to play around with fools like you." We'll see who the fool is soon enough," Naruto shot back, tightening his fists. It was a small sign that despite his casual expression, Sasuke's barbs could still aggravate him no matter what. As Iruka-sensei dropped his hand, calling the match to begin, Hinata hid her face in Naruto's Haori as her blonde crush and the Uchiha survivor shot at each other. When she finally gathered the courage to see what was going on, Hinata was amazed to Naruto doing so well. Before today, Sasuke would dominate their spars with well-timed punches before sweeping Naruto's legs from under him. However, now Naruto was more than keeping pace with the last Uchiha as the two fought in a flurry of fists, blocking and twisting, as neither wanted to give ground to the other. Naruto seemed to have gained a better foundation for his brawler-style taijutsu. Instead of the overextended haymakers and left hooks, he was now keeping to speedy jabs as he ducked and weaved through the punches Sasuke sent his way. And there. Just as Sasuke flowed into a punch, Naruto got on his right shoulder, going for the leg sweep. Naruto leapt quick and brought his legs up together to the point where his shoes clapped together. That seemed to be the signal to bring kicks into the skirmish. Naruto lashed out with a flowing two-kick combo, forcing Sasuke to block. The Uchiha was definitely surprised by Naruto's new moves, as was everyone else. Sasuke flipped back twice before skidding to the very end of his side of the mat. Naruto smirked at seeing his rival give ground. He took the break in their fight to catch his breath, smoothly regaining his stance while calming his combat fury. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at Naruto. He switched his stance slightly, bringing his left hand forward and his right leg back. It was to say that he was now going to take Naruto seriously. Naruto responded by rooting himself in his place, going rigid as he watched the Uchiha survivor with focus. "That idiot Naruto is actually doing it," one of the boys in the back muttered aloud. "Yeah, normally it'd be over by now," another agreed shortly after. "He must have worked really hard to get so good in such a short amount of time. Maybe we should start addressing him as captain." "Don't be stupid," Sakura screeched, making Hinata flinch and cover her ears. "Sasuke-kun is only playing around to humor Naruto. There's no way that Naruto Baka can win. If he wins, he wins." Ino shrugged, "Sasuke sees it, and so can all of us. Naruto has improved, and if Sasuke isn't careful, Naruto could get lucky and Sasuke could be beaten here." Naruto grinned wide upon hearing the shocked gasps of their classmates. "You hear that, Sasuke? Sounds like you're in trouble. Don't get cocky, dope. You've got some solid form now, I'll give you that. But you're 100 years too soon in fighting an Uchiha. You're the last Uchiha," Naruto stated as he narrowed his eyes. "And 100 years hasn't passed it just yet," Sasuke retorted smoothly, making Naruto snarl. Hinata could easily see that he was itching to recommence the fight. Naruto lost patience, charging at Sasuke with a roar of wrath. The Uchiha met him head-on, blocking his first few jabs before kicking Naruto in the side. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's leg and flung him back, but Sasuke easily recovered with a flip. However, Naruto was upon him again quickly, burying his fist in Sasuke's gut before spinning with a leg sweep. Sasuke backflipped over it, kicking Naruto in the chin as he did. The two recovered and snapped back to brawling against one another in the same heartbeat. It was still easy for Hinata's well-trained eyes to keep pace with the match. Sasuke still moved with grace and efficiency, his economy of movement in synchronization with his precision and power. Hinata could easily tell that he was well prepared for the day he acquired his Sharingan. The early years he had spent training with the Uchiha clan, may they find peace in the afterlife, had obviously been spent greatly. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, probably a fusion jutsu. Sasuke was a well-rounded fighter, and his style of block, dodge, and counterattack showed it to great effect. His kicks were swift and precise, hitting Naruto's chest or even ankles whenever the blonde came in too close. His punches, even when dodged, turned into grapples that caught Naruto off guard long enough for Sasuke to string together a series of jabs that would leave Naruto with a few bruises the next day. Sasuke was a genius and probably would continue to grow strong enough to give even her cousin Neji a run for his money in Taijutsu. Naruto, on the other hand, was quickly shaping up to be a monster of combat. Hinata had always held a brand of favoritism toward her blonde crush, but this was not one of her fangirl moments. She watched as Naruto used his unpredictable nature to string toward weird combination attacks that not only kept Sasuke on his toes, but pushed him back great. Flipping onto hands and lashing out with your feet. Who did that aside from Naruto? Doing a split in order to quickly deliver punches to your enemy's thighs, effectively attacking your opponent's sturdy stance and making their constitution weaker for the rest of the match. Only Naruto. Not only was her blonde affection making ingenious on-the-fly plans, but was backing them up with strength, speed, and unnerving precision, as though he had been hellbent on this fight for ages. His punches, even when blocked, seemed to send shockwaves through Sasuke's body, while still being fast enough that even the Uchiha couldn't outright dodge or block a flurry of fists aimed to take his head from his shoulders. Naruto's kicks were fast, but were long and sweeping. He seemed to move his legs as though he had practiced kicking through water. Hinata remembered her own such training, and Naruto's leg attacks reminded her of the first stages of it. Sasuke leapt back from a powerful kick Naruto sent sweeping toward his legs. Getting out of Naruto's range was now the most effective way of avoiding taking any more of the blonde's strong offensive. A month ago, all Sasuke would have to do is see the highly telegraphed attacks as they came at him, unpredictable or not. Naruto had lacked both the speed and basic foundation to make his attacks work against him. His stance had been flimsy at best, and his defense was non-existent. Naruto had been a horse, powerful and strong until he ran out of stamina, but very limited in his attacks and very predictable when he moved. Now, however, Naruto was a monkey. Strong, unpredictable, fast, smart, and with even his basic foundation, could use it in 100 different ways, as monkeys learn to use sticks and rocks the same way. Sasuke smirked though. While Naruto had certainly moved up the food chain, a monkey still could not compete with a tiger. Deadly, precise, and with the strength, speed, and intellect to use it all for the killing blow. You've still a long way to go before you beat me, dope. Sasuke said, probably not for the first or last time that day. His thighs were aching and his arms felt like rubber. Naruto had been dogged today, and if he didn't end things quickly, the blonde Uzumaki would surely win a war of attrition. Your legs are looking a little shaky there, Sasuke. Naruto was smirking, but he couldn't hide the red bruises that were forming on his hands or the way he leaned heavily on his left leg because Sasuke had been steadily attacking his right one. You were my equal before, but now I'm gonna take you out of the equation. I will stand alone at the top. Neither you nor the gods will ascend to my level. Were you crawling along in the dirt to begin with, Naruto? That had to be the first time Sasuke had used his name in class. Sure, he had said it once or twice when crossing paths with Naruto out in the village, but never before in the presence of their other classmates. The fangirls gasped as that was as good a confession of acknowledge as anyone could get from Sasuke Uchiha. The only girls whose names he used were Hinata, Ino, and Sakura, which made the latter two girls the undisputed leaders of the Sasuke fan club. Well, more Sakura than Ino over the last couple of months. Naruto chuckled softly. Ominously. The very air in the training hall changed as though it dropped several degrees. Everyone felt tense as the way Naruto at Sasuke changed from fiery rivalry to something akin to a deity staring down at a mere mortal. He even relaxed his stance, making Sasuke tense in his own, as he stood straight up. Your arrogance is excessive, Uchiha-san. Naruto said in a cool, detached manner. It was still highly respectful, as though the two were old comrades or something. No one was standing in the heavens to begin with. If he takes things too far, Shikamaru was muttering to Choji and Kiba behind Hinata, who was standing near Ino. Yeah, we know we can't let him kill Sasuke in front of everyone. That'd be hella bad for our new little fledgling organization, Kiba muttered back, and with her impressive vision, Hinata was able to see even Ino nod from where she was, silently listening to Shikamaru with her apparent friends. But then when did Ino become familiar with Kiba and Naruto? And why would Naruto kill Sasuke? Regardless, Hinata prepared herself to assist in any way possible. Naruto would get in trouble for attempted murder. Oh, and she didn't want Sasuke to die either. Not particularly, at least. Not you. Nor myself. Not even the gods. Naruto was going on, his presence steadily becoming stronger and stronger until the air around them became thick and heavy with his chakra. However, Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto reached up to flatten his hair back, and now even Iruka-sensei seemed anxious about what was going on. Mizuki simply looked confused by the whole drama. As was basically everyone else in the class. That unbearable vacancy in the throne of heaven will finally come to an end. Sasuke glared at Naruto's words. They sounded as crazy came. From now on, Naruto's power rose until several of their classmates, even Sakura and Shino, fell to their knees gasping for breath. I will stand alone in heaven. Iruka looked to be about to jump at Naruto, but Hinata was surprised when she saw a wrinkled hand grasp his shoulder from behind. She couldn't see who the hand belonged to, as they seemed to blend in perfectly with Iruka's shadow, but since her impressive vision managed to catch only the hand, she could guess as to their secret audience who could stay Iruka's overside of the match. Farewell, Sasuke Shida Uchiha. Sasuke's eyes widened impossibly at Naruto's use of his name, with an odd middle name. They weren't from Suna or Iwa, so the use of a middle name for a Konoha resident was very strange. I must admit that for a mere mortal, even one from the Uchiha clan, you were especially interesting. Sasuke's teeth grit in either rage or confusion. Naruto turned his back on Sasuke, who looked absolutely livid at that moment. But then, Naruto seemed to disappear and reappear right in front of him. Naruto had even placed his hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Aw. Naruto had reared back and headbutted Sasuke. The Uchiha went down hard and fast, screaming in agony as Naruto merely stood over him with his forehead bleeding. Then the blonde walked off as though Sasuke were not worth the effort. Yet and still, Hinata's keen eyesight did not fail her. She saw that when Naruto flashed across the mat to appear in front of the lone Uchiha, he had left something behind in his wake. They looked like chokers or even wristbands. However, they were leaving heavy impressions in the thick safety mat. Weights. Naruto has been wearing weights. But when did he get them, and how long had he been wearing them? Hinata thought in shock as she saw Naruto pick them up and keep his back toward everyone so no one could see him and his weights. They had to be heavy enough to make up the difference in speed, but Hinata had more than once glimpsed the ankle weights that Sasuke wore, so she knew that they too were more than likely still in the same league of speed at the moment. When Naruto finally turned back, adjusting his shihakishima from wherever he had hidden his weights on his person, the rest of the class had finally snapped out of their stupor. Mizuki ran over to Sasuke to see that the boy's forehead was bleeding and was already forming a painful-looking knot right in the center. Geez, that fox brat really did a number on him. The Uchiha brat is gonna look like a long-lost unicorn for a few days if he doesn't get that checked out quickly. Mizuki's respect for Naruto went up a bit for him taking the last of the arrogant Uchiha clan down a peg or two, but not enough for him not to kill the fox demon in his sleep if he had the chance to get away with it. Naruto Uzumaki is the winner. Mizuki announced, raising his hand while the other hand went to help Sasuke to his feet. Sasuke smacked the hand away before glaring at the floor as he swiftly rose up under his own strength. Sasuke's fists were clenched tight at his sides, but he didn't look up at Naruto at all. Instead, he took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and marched away from everyone and everything as he exited the hall without permission. Though Mizuki could understand why. Beaten by the fox freak and needing medical attention in order to not look like a mutant was perfectly acceptable as an excuse. As Naruto approached her to reclaim his Haori, Hinata became embarrassed. She had draped it over her shoulders and held it close without thinking. Now her crush saw her hugging his coat and was smiling at her. Why you did it, Naruto? Hinata couldn't help but yell in her own quiet voice. She was proud of the blonde who held her affection, showing everyone in their class to never count out people like him and her. Those who were considered the underdogs. Thanks Hinata. Naruto said as she handed him back his Haori, which he promptly put on in a swish of the coat. Though without all the hard training I did over the month, I gotta say that Sasuke would have kicked my ass if I had come at him with any of that weak shit I would make up back then. Hinata wasn't quite sure how to respond to that without sounding either creepy or crazy. She wanted desperately to encourage Naruto to make him see himself the way she saw him every day. Instead of saying anything, Hinata simply smiled and prayed that she wouldn't faint while so close to Naruto. Hey, I've got it. Hinata. Naruto suddenly exclaimed, startling the Hyuga princess into flinching. You should hang out with us and join our divisions. You're pretty strong. Maybe a little weird, not nearly as odd as Shino, mind you, so you're perfect for our group. Hinata only seemed to hear Naruto talk about joining him as she was strong and perfect. Her face went tomato red in seconds as she squeaked in fluster. Just as she was about to faint, Kiba came over with a sigh and began pushing her along the way toward the others. Well, he didn't kill Sasuke. That's good I guess, Shikamaru mumbled with a shake of his head and a small smile on his face. Yeah, but that headbutt that was a little uncalled for, don't you think? Choji asked while staring at where Sasuke had left the class. At least he didn't go for the eyes. Kiba remarked while moving Hinata, and they all nodded in thanks to that not happening. Naruto might have been executed if he damaged the last Uchiha's eyes in any way before his Sharingan awoke. Naruto could have ended the match in a number of different ways. Hinata was shocked to see Ino now standing beside Shikamaru and Choji, being caught unaware that her fellow female had moved from her previous position near Sakura and Shino. He should have used something less dramatic, but at least he didn't show off this time in a spar. He's finally learning that we should be hiding what we can really do rather than showing anyone who simply asks us for a demonstration. Ino is so mean to me I can never catch a break, Naruto said with a simple smile as he reached the group. Ino only scoffed at him, but she was smiling all the same. The rest of the class was less supportive of Naruto's growth. Sasuke wasn't even trying, cha. Plus, anyone would be caught blindsided by that stupid dribble Naruto was saying. Leave it to Naruto to win by beating his enemy with pure idiocy. Naruto, you absolute moron. Sakura raged as she looked ready to beat Naruto into the dirt below the training mat and floorboards. Another of the class spoke up then, that's not how ninja fight. Who the heck headbutts their opponent? Of course, Sasuke-san didn't see that one coming, Sharingan or not. Uzumaki is not even using what we get taught. He's just making it up as he goes along and it just happened to work today of all days. Sasuke-san deserves a rematch. No rematch, because my beloved Sasuke deserves the win for that match. I'm sorry, you're Sasuke. Fine, I meant to say our Sasuke. Better. Marginally. He shouldn't have been able to beat Sasuke. Naruto must have switched with a stunt double or something. Those of the mighty Uchiha clan don't lose to nameless orphans, especially dumb ones. Boy, will you idiots stop your griping. Naruto won fair and square. Ninja win no matter what they have to use. Victory at any cost. I'm just as stunned as everyone else, but yeah, Naruto really pulled off the win there. Stop complaining guys. It's over. Yeah, Uzumaki got the job done, and that's all that counts. Especially since the job was knocking Uchiha's ego back down to size in his own head. That headbutt looked painful, and Uzumaki is still bleeding. They both suffered from that. I know I'd never do it, but I'm sure now all of us will want to keep our distance in a fight against Uzumaki. Killer headbutt, dude. Some of the girls in the class began to boo at the blonde Uzumaki. Hinata couldn't believe it. Some of the students and fangirls were even accusing Naruto of cheating. However, she was glad that some of the others were sticking up for Naruto. They had to be glad that someone had finally taken Sasuke Uchiha down a peg or two when guys like them weren't even noticed by girls. Uzumaki-san did as any good shinobi should do in his situation. Shino was saying as they all exited the Taijutsu training hall. Despite how unnerved Shino made most people feel, they could all agree that he possessed an analytical mind focused on the logical, and he was to be respected. He used the skills at his disposal to both undermine his opponent and secure victory for himself. Whether what Uzumaki-san did in his match against Uchiha-san was foolishness, a prank, or any other such nonsense is debatable at best. However, what is not up for debate are his end results. He secured his objective, and for that we must concede the point. Uzumaki Taich won here today. Whether his growth in ability and skill will continue, or if he will retain his newfound sensible attitude that will require further observation. No one knew what to say in the wake of Shino's clear and concise words. The mere fact that Shino Aburam was not only acknowledging Naruto, but was now also giving the blonde his respect by way of calling him captain, sent shockwaves through the class and their understanding of the social order. Even if they couldn't agree on much of what Shino said, they all secretly agreed on one thing. Naruto Uzumaki, the supposed captain of some unknown 5th division, would require further observation indeed. So then, Iruka, tell me. The Hokage was staring across his desk at the academy instructor. What did you think of Naruto's display today? Lord Hokage, I'm not sure where he acquired the skill in a single month to beat Sasuke Uchiha, the academy's second best student in Taijutsu of their generation. He's only topped by Neji Hyuga, and Sasuke is closely followed by the third being Hinata Hyuga. How did Naruto go from on par with Kiba Inuzuka to fighting and beating Sasuke? It makes no sense, unless it was me being the one to train him. The Hokage lifted an eyebrow for emphasis. Or maybe it was in challenge of Iruka's now unspoken accusation. You can rest assured, I have not taken over Naruto's training from you, Iruka. Aside from a few corrections in his form, a couple of hints here or there, along with a spar or two together a week ago, Naruto has been training himself these past months. Himself? Iruka barked back in confusion, but then blinked. Wait. What do you mean these past months? He's only been gone 1 month. Naruto dedicated himself exclusively to his own training this past month, focusing inward and drawing upon the latent potential we've all seen within him. However, he has been practicing and training with his new group of friends for at least the last 4 months that have passed, maybe even the last half year, if my guess is correct. They have gotten quite far in their little time. I'd even say they'd pass their exams to become genin level ninja at the moment if Naruto could make a decent enough clone right now. What happened? I thought I was keeping track of him, Iruka muttered, looking a little hopeless. Naruto was already hard enough for most people to keep under thumb, but Iruka had always believed himself the best of keeping tabs and eyes on Naruto at all times. He and his little friends from your class have come together to form a cute little organization. The third Hokage put his elbows on his desk with his hands together to cover his mouth from view. He didn't want Iruka to see the small smile on his face, which would give proof to his favoritism of Naruto. The boy was something special, so determined and resilient. They call themselves the divisions and are training to one day make the name stick. Or at least, Naruto is reaching for that goal from what he tells me. But then, where did he go? He couldn't have left the village. Iruka put forth. And that he did not. Hiruzen Sarutobi moved from his chair in order to stare out his office window, overlooking the village with his stern gaze. Naruto approached me with a request for a place to train away from others. He said that his apartment's courtyard didn't provide the right atmosphere, and so I granted him access to my personal grounds. He trained himself into the ground from dawn to dusk as hard as possible before going home to eat properly, bath, and rest for the next day of training. I had an Anbu operative follow him and report back to me once he was safely asleep. But who could convince Naruto to eat properly? I've tried time and time again, only to meet failure. For Naruto to give up eating ramen for every meal. Iruka muttered to himself, and it was too much. The Hokage burst into a fit of laughter, a sound that was quite improper for a man known worldwide as the professor. Ha, ha, ha. To be honest, even I was curious about it when he and I ate after a spar. He complained that the young lady, Ino Yamanaka, would have his head if she found out he was back to eating ramen all the time. Ha ha ha. It would seem little Nari-chan has gotten himself a girlfriend. Naruto and Ino. Iruka wasn't sure if he was more terrified, confused, or happy. The two blondes would make an amazing pair, but Ino was quite bossy and sometimes just as much a handful as Naruto himself. Well, I suppose Naruto could use a slave-driving trophy girlfriend to motivate him into becoming successful, that is, unless she kills him first. Neither the Hokage or Iruka knew which outcome to expect. Naruto looked up from where he was training. Standing atop a tree branch was none other than Sasuke Uchiha with a square bandage covering his forehead. "Sasuke. What's up?" Naruto asked, sheathing his bakken and his orange obi sash. The tree Naruto had been practicing on had slash marks in the wood, and the Uchiha couldn't figure out how Naruto was doing it with a wooden practice sword. Still though, Sasuke's eyes were unchanging as he jumped down and began walking toward Naruto. "You are the only person who's given me this feeling before. Aside from Hinata, only you have made me put forth any effort in my taijutsu, but only you have given me this feeling." "I see," Naruto said as he stared ahead at Sasuke's approach. "Well, if we're being honest here." Naruto's eyes hardened incredibly as he locked gazes with the Uchiha. "I've seen eyes like yours before. All around the village. But those eyes were always aimed at me, and for one reason or another they were filled with hatred and anger. You, however, you're not looking at me. So, who is it? Who are your eyes glaring at when you see past me? It drives me insane. For once, someone's eyes are not directed at me, so I've just gotta know. Tell me. Who are you looking at?" Sasuke felt himself twitch. He hesitated for a second, coming in front of Naruto with a hard breath. "We didn't make the sign of reconciliation before I left," Sasuke said instead, staring at Naruto, who could see that Sasuke was now in the present moment. Naruto's head tilted to the side a bit. His hand rested casually on the hilt of his bakken. You're right, we didn't make the sign for peace, or whatever." Sasuke was the first to extend his hand, putting it into the sign of confrontation, then held it out to Naruto, giving him a cautious look. Naruto's eyes dropped to Sasuke's hand for a second before he smiled, forming the seal of confrontation himself. He hooked his fingers with Sasuke's own into the seal of reconciliation. "Now then, before I tell you about the one I hope to surpass, you need to tell me something," Sasuke said with a smirk, getting a bemused look out of Naruto as they let go of each other's hand quickly. "Eh? What could I possibly have to tell you? You're the one who came here to me. You need to tell me." Sasuke was now glaring at Naruto. "How in the hell you knew my middle name?" "Eh? Oh, that, well, I actually said that name by mistake." Heh, Naruto rubbed at the back of his neck in slight embarrassment. "It's actually a pretty fun story. See, me and the gang have been reading this manga series, and it has a character named Uriwashita in it. He's kinda like you in a way, but I see you as more of a Byakuya Kichiki to my Kenpachi Zaraki or something, you know. Anyways, Uriwashita is a Quincy, and they're like this noble yet nearly extinct race of human archers that were killed off by the Soul Reapers for one reason or another. I don't know, ask Shikamaru or Ino more about it. So, back to Byakuya Kichiki, who is the guy I really think you match up with. He's pretty badass, but he's gotta stick up his ass a mile long. He does all these messed up things in the beginning because he's caught between his family's honor and upholding the law within Soul Society. I mean, the dude takes his own sister prisoner and fights to see her executed. That is beyond crazy, right? Right. Like I was saying, Byakuya has this massive stick up his ass." Sasuke blinked twice. He had not expected all of that. Naruto continued on in tangent that way as Sasuke listened to him with an annoyed expression, slowly morphing into one of bewildered curiosity, while Naruto went on and on about the comic series called Deathberry. Chapter 6. Foundation of the Divisions, Part 2. Formation. Hinata sat on Naruto's couch, overwhelmed with how suddenly things had changed in the course of the last couple of years. In her lap lounged a platinum blonde cat, lazily flicking its tail left and right as her hand gently pet its fur. If someone had told her 2 years ago she would be in a close-knit group with the blonde boy of her dreams, chatting and laughing with him nearly every day, and spending quality time with individuals she could actually call friends, well, she might have fainted from the mere thought. She had gone so quickly from wishing that Naruto would just notice her, to being surprised every day when she was one of the first people he immediately latched onto for conversation and plans for that day. It made her knees weak. Her, Hinata Hyuga, cohorts and chums with the unbridled ball of energetic determination that was Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto would rush right up to her, going on and on about the newest volume of Deathberry he and the others had gotten into. She didn't read it much, except when Naruto read it with her. Then he would take her by the hand and practically drag her to class where the others would be waiting. Kiba would be the first to brag about the new volume, saying how awesome this move was or how the clash between two characters had been epic. That would get the discussion going. Kiba had a very good memory for the characters' names and their importance to the plot of the story. He always seemed to focus more on them as people than as warriors. Ino or Choji would next elaborate on pages in detail. Their setting and the characters' abilities in contrast to each other. Ino could perfectly recall any and every outfit worn by the individuals in the manga. She would often go off in tangent about the materials and fabrics that would be best for the different environments the characters traveled through, going from the human world to Soul Society and all. Choji was better at the powers of the people, scaling them in comparison to one another with great accuracy. Then it was Shikamaru's turn to direct conversation. He would analyze and break down the techniques in use by the Deathberry caste, in contrast to ninja arts from various books he and Naruto were studying up on. The third Hokage had given Naruto permission to have shinobi texts and scrolls for him to study in order to become a better ninja. Whatever Naruto requested would be delivered to him by a member of the Anbu Black Ops, normally by a brown-haired man in a Tora mask or silver-haired guy in an Inu mask. From the scrolls and books Naruto got, he and Shikamaru were more than able to define what genjutsu styles were used in the manga and what level of ninjutsu the characters used against each other called Kido. Her new friends amazed her with the simplicity of their scientific method. Naruto would demonstrate the move on a small scale, showing the others how the move would be executed with the use of his enormous stores of chakra. He'd say how it was either for someone lithe and flexible like Sui Feng or Ino, or how it required muscle from a person like Renji Abarai, Kiba, or Choji. Or maybe it would be so simple and clever that only people like Shikamaru or Hinata herself could pull it off effortlessly and without looking like try-hard jackasses. Naruto used vulgar language sometimes, but Hinata didn't mind. He never used it in front of their teachers or directed it at her. She wasn't sure how she would feel if he did. From there they would practice the move a couple of times, but they always waited until after their lessons at the academy before they tried anything with the use of chakra. Sasuke Uchiha would join them then. The third Hokage continued to lend Naruto the use of a private training ground and extended that privilege to the rest of them. Your little band of friends are always welcome here. The third Hokage had offered with a smile. Hinata had been speechless to receive such honor from their village's leader and most powerful shinobi. Thankfully, Ino had not been rendered to such a state. The blonde girl had grabbed Naruto by the neck, forcing him to respectfully bow and thank Lord Hokage for his unbelievable generosity. Sometimes, Hinata wished she had Ino's outgoing and vibrant attitude. Hey, Earth to Hinata. The Hyuga girl jumped with a squeak as she was startled. The blonde cat in her lap hissed before jumping off her, running away. Naruto was moving in front of her, waving a hand in her face. You still alive in there, Miss Hyuga? Why yes, Naruto-kun. Hinata had gotten a little better at keeping the stutter out of her voice. But with the source of her affection so close, she couldn't help the blush that covered her face or the trembling in her voice. I'm sorry I must have gotten lost in thought. Hey, it's okay, so long as you ain't dead. Naruto shrugged casually. I once heard that people can't die just sitting there like zombies or something. It sounds really weird, but Ami from class says that's how her folks found her grandfather. Just sitting in the chair like he was thinking, but he was actually dead. You idiot. Ino had appeared behind Naruto, whacking him over the head with a paper fan, an irritated expression on her face. That only applies to old people. Hinata isn't some grandma about to keel over. She hasn't even reached the prime of youthful beauty. Hinata blushed at the image of Ino's words. It was almost as if Ino were saying that she would grow more beautiful and Naruto should take notice. Prime of youthful beauty. Naruto looked momentarily confused but then got really close to Hinata's face. All she could do was stare at him, her face red hot as she chanted mentally to not faint and look like a weirdo. But Hinata's already pretty enough. She has really soft skin and no blemishes. Even if her eyes are kind weird, given they have no pupil, that still isn't much of a complaint. Plus, Hinata's hair is really nice and her breath always smells like cinnamon sticky buns. Get out of her face, moron. Ino began battering Naruto as Hinata was finally overloaded and collapsed back onto the couch. Her mind couldn't process if all the things Naruto had said were reality or a dream, but it had been wonderful while it lasted. Oh no. Hinata. She kicked the bucket, Dadabeo. You fool, let go of her. She's not dead. Quick. We need to find an Unohana or Kuritsuchi type person to revive her from the grave. We can't lose Hinata. She's the only nice girl in our group, Dadabeo. What did you just say? Oh gods, help. Ino is trying to kill me. I'll succeed this time too, you giant jackass. Sasuke Uchiha merely raised an eyebrow at the door before closing it. He turned on heel and walked away from the apartment even as Shikamaru and Choji gave each other bemused looks. I'll meet you all at the training grounds. I refuse to be party to their foolishness. Was all Sasuke said before disappearing off into the distance. Shikamaru sighed as Choji opened the door only for them to see Ino trying to stab Naruto through the eye with a butter knife. Choji politely stepped beyond the murder scene in order to raid Naruto's kitchen for a snack before they went out training. Hinata was still passed out on the couch, muttering to herself about how much Naruto's kisses tickled her skin. Shikamaru could only sigh again as he took the plunge and stepped inside. Why was he always the one left to defuse the crazies? Tenten-senpai, are you okay? Hinata asked as she, Ino, Naruto, and Kiba were made spectators to the brown bun-haired girl's slightly off mood. The 5 individuals in question were standing in an empty hallway as classes were in session. The 4 students were allowed free time since they and Sasuke Uchiha had successfully mastered the taijutsu maneuvers their class had been reviewing that day. Sasuke had gone off on his own to train for the rest of the hour, but Naruto had been adamant about tracking down the girl named Tenten in order to make their request. Unfortunately, Naruto had no idea that Tenten would be like this. Tenten was staring off into space with stars in her eyes. There was a heavy blush across her cheeks and nose. Her face was cupped in her hands while she mindlessly giggled to herself. Be there, senpai. They respect me. Ho. They think of me so highly. I'm already one step closer on becoming a legendary woman just like Lady Tsunade. They need me. They want me. Ho. Is she gonna be okay? Naruto asked as he tilted his head while watching the strange behavior. Either that or we're getting lucky tonight. My mom and sister told me all about that kinda look on a girl, Kiba whispered into Naruto's ear but was not quiet enough as Ino bonked him over the head, her own face now slightly rosy in the cheeks. Though more from scandalous embarrassment than anything else. Like she had some kind of growing crush or affection or whatever for Naruto Uzumaki. As if. Tenten finally snapped back to reality from her fantasies about being praised by Tsunade Senju as a more capable and powerful female than herself. Tenten saw this moment as fate. It was destiny that they, her juniors, had come to her with their problems. It was like Kami placing her in the perfect spot to start passing on the wisdom and guidance that she would one day become known for. Ho. And I'm not even out of the academy yet. Thank you, Kami-sama. Your divine blessings know no bounds. Tenten praised, clapping her hands together before dancing around in another bout of fantasy. She quickly snapped out of this one though, pointing her finger right in front of Naruto's face as she grinned her biggest grin to date. I'll do it. Tenten declared. But we haven't even really told you what we need. Kiba was cut off as Tenten shook her head. I don't care. It doesn't matter what it is. As your proud and wise senpai, it is my job to help you juniors in whatever endeavors your little hearts might desire. No task is too great or small for your beloved Tenten senpai. Tenten said, laughing delightedly as she went into yet another bout of fantasy. This time Naruto, Ino, Hinata and Kiba were praising her for being so humble and caring. In reality though, the 4 were staring at her with bewildered looks. Okay then I guess she'll ask her dad for us. I guess let's just leave her the design scrolls and be on our way, Naruto said, making sure to slowly put the scroll down on the desk in front of Tenten. The others did the same, backing out of the room slowly and carefully, while Tenten was again cupping her blushing face and giggling to herself about not needing any more praise from her peers or Lady Tsunade. Tenten was rather weird about things the rest of the day, declaring that others below her call her senpai and feel free to ask for her guidance. People just gave her weird looks while the teachers were at least glad that a noteworthy student was being so helpful, if not a bit creepy about it, though to their view. As the group were let out of academy classes one day, Sasuke walked out into the village feeling happy. Yes, it was probably happiness that he felt. He and Naruto had grown a lot closer than he had ever believed they would after that first evening talking to each other. 3 years ago now, Sasuke still couldn't wrap his head around it. Naruto had head-butted himself into Sasuke's friendship and it still didn't quite make sense to anyone, least of all the people of the village. Naruto simply had this presence about him that made it easy for him to be around people, even if they were irritated by him to no end. Not to mention how he annoyingly clung to people like an infectious virus. Naruto didn't let his friends go if he could help it, they had to pry themselves free of the blonde. Nonetheless, Sasuke found that as he made his way through the village and listened to the whispers of people talking about his new appearance, as though he were a fashion model, he still felt happy. It had now been 3 years since they sparred that fateful day, and Sasuke had found something more to live for. When his clan was killed by that man, he had thought that everyone he cared for in the world had disappeared. All he had seen in front of him was him and his desire to kill the man. Now, however, he realized that the third Hokage was right when he prattled on and on about the bonds between those who lived in Konoha. The entire village could be his new family, in the vaguest sense of the word. He would never forget the Uchiha clan, as his real family would always be very dear to his heart. He would miss them for all eternity, but that would not stop others from becoming precious to him. Granted, he could count his precious people, as Naruto put it, on his 2 hands, but it was a good start nonetheless. Also, his clan could be revived. That was something he vowed to himself a night after training himself into the ground with the others. That responsibility rested on his shoulders. If he wanted to bring the clan back to greatness, then he would have to become a man worth the attention of respectable women. Not fangirls. That would be a last resort, something he was too ashamed to admit. Therefore, he focused some of his attention on becoming a dignified man, someone that could immediately be seen as the head of an honorable family. Taking up the character of Byakuya Kichiki made that endeavor slightly easier. After all, if he focused all his attention on getting strong enough to kill Itachi, then he might die in the destined battle, then the Uchiha clan would be forever gone from Konoha. Another last resort was giving the quest to restore the Uchiha clan to Naruto. He would never admit it until his dying breath, but he wasn't ashamed of it either. Just to be safe though, he did write it in a copy of his last will and testament, given to the third Hokage if he should die before killing the slayer of his clan and becoming a Jonin-level ninja. Nonetheless, Sasuke vowed to himself that he would take charge of his destiny and defend the honor of the Uchiha, just as Byakuya defended the honor of the noble Kichiki household. With that in mind, Sasuke stopped in front of the library where Naruto, Ino, Hinata, Choji and Shikamaru were already waiting for him. Kiba would swing by in a few hours after training with his mother and sister in his clan arts. From what Sasuke understood, Kiba needed to become fast and strong enough to use his clan arts effectively. This was unlike Ino, Shikamaru and Choji, who only needed the proper chakra control and a few practice lessons every week. Shaking his head of the distracting thoughts, Sasuke stepped forward. This was part of getting good enough to protect that honor. He and Naruto had decided to take matters into their own hands by actively searching out the information they would need. The texts and scrolls they received from their head captain, the third Hokage, were well enough, but without supplementary information and a foundation of theory, any further experimentation into making their goals a reality would end in critical failure. Sasuke was also secretly proud that he was the only one among his friends that took the time out every other night for an hour to study a dictionary. Using big words against Naruto was just too easy to pass up. It was a way of humbling the blonde and too darn funny for Sasuke not to take advantage. The Uchiha watched as the librarian threw Naruto a dirty look before greeting the rest of them with only the highest of respect. If the man had been anyone of note, then he would have recognized that Naruto was one of the last members of the Uzumaki clan in the entire world. They had discovered that last week, but Naruto didn't seem to really care. He must have cried about it though as he came to school the next day with a raw nose and puffy eyes. Nonetheless, Naruto ignored the man at the front desk and simply continued on as though it didn't bother him. Sasuke knew that it did because Naruto would inevitably complain about it to them later that same day. So now, they were looking through scroll after scroll, researching ninja and chakra as much as possible. Naruto would grouch about it to Hinata, the only one among them either too weak or simply too kind to turn a deaf ear to the annoying blonde. Halfway into the 5th hour, Naruto wanted to spend the rest of the day at Ichiraku Ramen, but Ino finally had enough as she smacked him with a book and told him to shut up and read it before she stuffed it down his throat. Sasuke had to admit it was a bit harsh, but that seemed to be the only way to get through to Naruto. The only other time he shut up and read was when Hinata had asked politely for him to talk softly as she had lost her place in a scroll on the theory of medical ninjutsu. Naruto had clamped his mouth shut then, but been back at it an hour later. Now he was grumbling quietly to himself as he read through a text on the basic aspects of sensor ninja. Ah man, there's so many to choose from, how do we know which one will fit into the divisions? I mean, we've been here for 6 hours already. Sensor ninja, medic ninja, offensive ninjutsu, defensive ninjutsu, jinjutsu specialist, taijutsu specialist, shinobi theorist, Naruto muttered, looking thoroughly overwhelmed as he put down his 7th scroll that day. The others were well into their 20th, but there was no need to bring that up to the blonde. Aside from kinjutsu with a bit of elemental chakra manipulation, I've got no idea what we need. Then maybe you should put more energy into studying rather than griping about things. Sasuke spat, having enough of Naruto's childish antics. The blonde was much smarter than he let on, but book knowledge was not his forte. The least he could do was let them all study in peace if he was not going to contribute. Sasuke is right. You need to build your theoretical knowledge if you ever want to help us achieve what we're planning. Shikamaru said as he put down a book on chakra natures. You're the only one among us that has enough chakra to make multiple attempts at these techniques in a single day. Without your blunders on the training field as we help you get through the trial and error process, we'd be set back by years instead of months. We have only another year left before the next graduation exams are held at the academy. In that time, we still have much to master before our personal time is cut drastically short by our responsibilities as shinobi to the village. We've held ourselves back enough already. There can be no more excuses as to why we don't graduate. Everyone is questioning why we have held ourselves back the past 3 years. We must graduate on time since we did not exit the academy program with an early graduation. And I will say again. I will not bring shame to the noble name of Uchiha. Sasuke said with his closed eyes, looking a little furious. Not to mention the fact that we still don't have a devoted healer in our group even after 3 years. We've become so popular a group that no one in the school or on the streets will approach us to join. Not even when we offer fabulous prizes to include them. Ino sighed as she gave up on an interrogations text. I like the presents we get in return though, those are nice. Kiba said, having arrived a couple hours ago with his clothes all mussed up from training with his family. Why you know Shino has inquired about Jade joining us, Hinata said, and was promptly ignored by everyone. True, they wanted people to join, but Shino Aburam was just plain creepy. For the moment, I think we should all focus on personal achievement rather than group effort. Naruto will still be our lab rat and test dummy, Sasuke said into the awkward silence. Naruto shouted in protest to being called such demeaning things. The librarian shushed the blonde for his volume. Like for instance, I am an offensive fighter for the most part. I will master techniques in Zanjutsu, Kido, Shunpo, and Hakuta. However, I have not allowed my ninja arts to suffer for this and so have continued to expand my arsenal of ninjutsu, taijutsu, and jinjutsu. You have never seemed the jinjutsu type to me, you've no imagination and you've never mentioned any of this before. Naruto said, tilting his head to the side. Sasuke shrugged. Well, not right now, but when I acquire the Sharingan, it will come naturally to me exponentially. Naruto stared at Sasuke for a long time. What is Sharingan and exponentially? Sasuke smirked even as Shikamaru facepalmed himself. Perhaps when you've finished 10 books, I'll tell you things only an Uchiha could hope to understand. Sasuke said smugly, making Naruto bristle. Why you dirty boss? Naruto's face was pushed into the table by Ino, who was looking around quickly to make sure no one was paying them any attention. Let's just stay on topic, dimwits. Sasuke is right, but we still need to refine ourselves in a group setting. My dad is always telling me about how dangerous the job of a ninja is. He thinks I'm not cut out for it since we're getting so close to the end of our time at the academy, but I know I have what it takes. We study on our own time, but at least once every few days from now on until the graduate exams, we should come together on the training grounds to study a new technique. That sounds more than agreeable. Hinata said softly, her hands clutching a book on medicinal plants. And I think we can all agree that Naruto should take the lead on the deathberry stuff for the rest of the year. Kiba said, putting down his book on animal markings. He's got the most free time and doesn't have the added layer of clan techniques to learn. There aren't any books on the Uzumaki clan he can research now, anyway. Although those are under guard in the Shinobi History and Research Department across the village where only registered ninja and specially approved individuals can enter. Which means that Naruto can use the time we're not around for those few days between our group sessions to start mastering the deathberry techniques, enough to show the rest of us how to do them. Oh yeah, just leave me to do all the heavy lifting, Naruto muttered, but then shrugged as he took up a scroll of the basics of the sealing arts. Opening it to the index, the others saw Naruto furrow his brow before clicking his tongue and closing it immediately. He still kept it to himself however, which did not go unnoticed. Fine. I'll be the group guinea pig since the rest of you are too weak to even begin the process on your own, but it'll consume most of my training time as it is. Your ninja arts were lacking anyway. Shikamaru said without a care, even as Naruto threw an angry glare at him. At least this way you'd become good at something. I mean, you still can't make even one halfway decent clone to save your life. Maybe if you mastered Suifenger's Amari's afterimage techniques, it would be a nice substitute. Naruto hummed, putting some serious thought into the matter. He opened a wooden hand fan in front of his face, fanning himself as he spoke. You make a fair point, damned as I am to admit it, I really haven't improved my clone jutsu at all, even with all the practice I've put into it. I would say I have too much chakra for it, but even when I try to create dozens of the clones, I still only come out with one sickly looking thing. Boy oh boy, tough decisions, all around. And Naruto-kun. Hinata started slowly, fidgeting with her index fingers before taking a deep breath. I'd be happy to help you improve in your deathberry tea techniques. As with before, my Byakugan still needs training, and you've been a big help in that. My father says my eyes are growing stronger every day. He's even started to take an interest in our training group. Well, that's great, Hinata. Naruto cheered, getting shushed by an annoyed librarian. I hope I didn't get you in trouble when I called your daddy you know what to his face. Hinata blushed as she recalled Naruto calling her father a cold-hearted bastard when they had visited the Hyuga family compound in order to spend the day with Hinata, who was ordered by her father not to leave the compound as to focus on her own training instead of her friends. Naruto had thrown her father's decision out the window when he simply had Sasuke lead the group to the Hyuga family compound on the other side of the village. There, Naruto and the others were ushered in at the order of her father, who was surprised and annoyed that they had come looking for his daughter. When Hyuga had made the mistake of dismissing Hinata's skills in front of Naruto, saying that she was unworthy of her position as clan heiress, he had got a first-hand lesson in how fiercely Naruto regarded his friends. Naruto grabbed her father by the collar of his robes before shouting in his face that she was an excellent training partner and a first-rate member of the newly founded divisions. He ranted and raved about how she was wonderful in many ways, from the way her Byakugan could analyze his chakra to see how they could all correctly perform techniques from the Deathberry series, to when she used her medical knowledge and medicinal herbs to make salve that healed their wounds after a day of hard training. Naruto had snapped, if you, her father and head of the Hyuga family household, can't see something so obvious with that damn freaky eye power of yours, then you're either really stupid or you're just being a cold-hearted bastard. What was that, intolerable brat? Her father had stood to his full height with Naruto barely coming up to his chest. I called you a stupid cold-hearted bastard, Dadabeo. Naruto shouted again, this time loud enough for the entire compound to probably hear. Naturally, her father had been furious. He had called the guards to grab Naruto, but Naruto had proved once again that he wasn't done. He had knocked the guards aside, demanding that her father be man enough to face the de facto leader of the divisions himself. He had nearly risen to the bait, his chakra rising to the point where his favorite teacup had cracked. Naruto had matched him, however, shattering that teacup when their chakra clashed in the middle of the room. Naruto and her father blurred, clashing fist against open palm atop the table. Naruto was swiftly defeated though, with 8 palm strikes that sealed his chakra in quick succession. He groaned about it before standing up, saying that his bones would wither to dust before he failed to defend Hinata's honor as a founding member of the divisions. That was when, to the surprise of everyone, her father had begun laughing. Hysterically. He quickly got over it though, folding his hands behind his back as, with a very serious look on his face, he actually encouraged her to spend more time around this young street urchin, as hopefully some of Naruto's confidence and bravado would rub off on her. Ever since that day, her father hadn't even looked disgusted at her choice to wear the shikishima outside to school and training. He would merely give her outfit a glance, letting her know to have it washed, or if he would have it repaired or replaced, because of the damage to it from her practice. Oh no, my father hardly even remembers that day, Hinata said, though she was fibbing a bit. Her father had made it expressly clear that he would only tolerate Naruto in very small doses. They could train with the Hyuga family on their grounds once or twice a month, but only that much. It would help her and them build their taijutsu properly, he had said. So far, they had only had 10 sessions with the members of her family. And only one with her prodigy of a cousin Neji, who had butt heads with Naruto literally as Naruto did with opponents who he apparently considered rivals. Sasuke had been the one to confirm to them that much. Great. Then with your help, Hinata, I'm sure I'll get it all down. We'll have mastered everything those books have to teach us in no time flat, Dadabeo. Naruto cheered loudly, pumping a fist into the air. He was kicked out of the library after that by a very satisfied-looking librarian. The platinum blonde cat with teal eyes swished its tail back and forth while being held by a lavender-haired young girl with pale pupilless eyes. The 2 young women were accompanied by an annoyed boy with his black hair resembling a pineapple and a chubbier boy who was busy eating small cakes from a snack box. These 4 individuals were standing a safe distance away from the commotion in front of them, even as an explosion tore apart the ground and kicked up a gust of wind that sent dust flying their way. Geez, just cover us in dirt, why don't ya? Shikamaru muttered as Choji stopped eating for a second to throw up an orange cubic barrier that would protect them from further dust clouds. And why hadn't you done that before now? The blonde cat asked in an annoyed tone. Those 2 have been at this for nearly an hour. Because now it was starting to make me chew small mineral deposits from my snack cakes, was Choji's simple answer around the powder-covered snack in his mouth. I didn't like that, so I fixed it. Now my food is safe. Choji USH shouldn't use your abilities for such frivolous things, Hinata stuttered as she clutched Ino's cat form close to her. Another explosion rocked the area, though this time it was a clash between green flames and white lightning that sent the dust and debris skyward. And Ino really shouldn't turn into a cat just because Uruchi Shimin did it in Deathberry. Choji retorted with no ill intent. The dust settled atop the cubic orange barrier, and Choji freed a hand from his snacks in order to make a one-handed signal that distorted the shape of his construct, causing the dust to harmless light off the side of it before returning to normal. This coming from the guy trying to get as large as Hachigen Ashmda, Ino muttered as Choji appeared to take offense to that comment. What did you say? He yelled, glaring comically at Ino, who only gave him back a cool stare. I said you are fat, Tubbs. Ino was back to her human form in an instant. She stood beside Hinata in her now normal purple version of the Uruchi outfit, though this time with the captain's Haori for the 2nd division over it. What you gonna do about it, nah? I'll kill you. Choji stated harshly, his palm now holding a small glowing red orb as Ino smirked. She lashed backward with a kick, easily shattering Choji's barrier and disappearing just as Choji cried out, Hado number 31. Shack him. The explosion that followed was escaped by Hinata and Shikamaru, both whose division clothes were now dirty from the close-range attack that sent dirt flying everywhere near them. Hey. The hell is going on over there? Naruto's voice called out from the distance. That was his mistake as he was screaming the next second as yellow lightning descended upon him. You should focus on your own survival. Sasuke stated while preparing another Kido attack. Toji and I are working on his anger management issues. Ino laughed, dodging a barrage of small red orbs that all exploded with the force to blow apart a tree. She made it look easy, slipping between the thrown bombs as though dancing on a nightclub floor. Now I've got you. Choji suddenly exclaimed. Ino would have laughed more if she didn't feel her stomach impact with a bar of light. This was just before 5 more bars pinned her to the spot by slamming into her from all horizontal directions. And you're gonna pay for calling me fat. I'm big-boned, damn it. Hado number 33. Sankatsui. Ino saw the wave of blue flames engulf every blade of grass on their way toward her. She sighed. This was gonna really mess up her clothes and hair. Bakudo number 81. Danku. Came the shout from Shikamaru, and a transparent shield came to life in front of Ino, only to crack and buckle under the pressure of the blue flames. Luckily for the purple-clad girl, the shield held fast until the bitter end, whereafter the torrent of blue hell fizzled out of existence. The protective spell shattered into non-existence a moment later, leaving only the heat from the attack it defended to make Ino sweat. She quickly shattered the shafts of light binding her in place and appeared in a swift blur in front of Choji, who was looking all too satisfied with himself. You brain-dead jackass. You could have seriously killed me with that attack. It was way too overpowered. Huh? Choji blinked in surprise, then tilted his head. You're still alive. Damn. You were seriously trying to murder me. Ino was outraged. Well, you had no right to call me fat. Fair is fair. The Akamichi chirped happily with a shrug of his shoulders, the black sleeves of his robes falling to his elbows. You should have made sure I was dead, fatso. Ino seethed, and Choji was back to murder as well as they got in each other's faces. Because now I'm gonna reduce your size to tiny chunks of lard. Ino drew the bakken sheathed horizontally behind her lower back. It seemed to steam with grey energy, growling like an alley cat cornered. You just bring it, you blonde bimbo. Choji snapped back, his hands crackling with intense blue energy that arched and shuddered like lightning. HMPH, to think that this is how the divisions would act disgraceful. Sasuke Uchiha had arrived on the scene, his eyes closed and his white Haori for the 6th division billowing behind him. In his long black hair was an intricate bone-white Kensuken headpiece. Around his neck was a silver-white scarf that looked expensive. He finally opened his eyes, leveling his division's comrades with his cool onyx gaze. I find myself ashamed to call either of you boorish peons my colleagues. He stated plainly, which turned both Ino and Choji's ire toward him as their new target. What was that, Uchiha? I didn't quite catch it. Ino hissed, her entire body now engulfed in flowing grey power. I think he meant to insult us, Ino. Choji growled, his form shrouded in crackling blue lightning. But that couldn't be true, not unless you had a death wish. As if the likes of you could even touch one such as me, Sasuke said in cool confidence, his hand resting comfortably on the hilt of his bakken. I wouldn't even need to dirt my blade with paupers such as you. Just as Ino and Choji inched closer to the Uchiha and he narrowed his eyes in challenge to them, every last one of them, even Hinata and Shikamaru, were slammed with the overwhelming pressure of Naruto's chakra as he entered the clearing. He looked none too concerned with whatever battle was about to occur between the three, but did seem to take issue with something. This is no way for the divisions to act. Founders fighting amongst themselves over petty insults. Disgraceful. Naruto said, his Bakken being used like a walking cane as he approached the gathering of his friends like an old man. He was hunched over, his other hand folded behind his back as he narrowed his eyes like an elderly man at them. And to think you would sully your uniforms over this. Those Haori and Shikushla are expensive. What do you think they're for? They make excellent and convenient napkins. Choji happily supplied his answer in the face of Naruto's wrath. They are stylish and match well with my outfits. Ino chirped while a vein appeared to throb in Naruto's forehead. They are cheap and easily replaceable, Sasuke muttered with a look of disinterest on his face, even as Naruto exploded in anger. Idiots. Tenten sweetie, are you sure you don't want daddy's help in there? Her father questioned nervously as his daughter heated the furnace again to their smith site. No, dad. I can do this. My juniors are depending on me. Tenten shouted over the roaring flames and sounds of hammer striking metal anvil. She paused only for a second to wipe the sweat from her brow and heave a deep breath. No task is too great or small for their beloved Tenten-senpai. No task whatsoever. Do you hear me? None. Okay sweetheart, just be careful, daddy loves you. He said, watching fretfully as his adopted daughter finally took an interest in his ironworks and weapon expertise. Later found Sasuke watching Naruto as the blonde led their group to the very top of the Hokage monument. It was his first time ever coming up there, having had no interest in visiting a local landmark before he befriended Naruto and the others. Naruto, however, seemed to come there very often. At least once every few days. Iruka had once told him that if he ever wanted a bit of peace and quiet away from his fangirls who had increased since he started to wear his clothes, similar to the character of Byakuya Kichiki around the village in the recent year, that this was the place to go. Iruka had also said that the suggestion had come from one of his students. Now Sasuke knew exactly who that student was. Sasuke had to admit, the last few years of being close to Naruto and the others had made him happy. He wasn't over the death of his clan or his hatred of that man, but at least now he had others around him that helped to channel his rage and frustration into something else. Wow, and Naruto. Hinata exclaimed, you can see the whole village from here. Yeah, this was actually a pretty good break from training. Shikamaru was smiling lightly. Almost certainly worth the walk. You can see so much from up there. Choji muttered in awe, and beside him was Kiba, who had finally finished his day's training with his mother in the Inuzuka clan's secret arts. Whatever it was that he had been training in had been tough, leaving him covered in scraps and cuts, some even on his face. They were all now covered in salve, courtesy of Hinata and Ino's healing paste. Hinata makes a guy feel small, you know, like we're all just tiny parts of something much bigger than ourselves, Kiba said, and Sasuke saw Ino nod her head in agreement. Even he had to agree. The village was vast, and it did make him feel tiny in comparison. As though he and they were mere raindrops in an ever-falling storm, or ants a part of a colony. One in the many. And the needs of one never outweighed those of the many. This is what we must protect. Naruto said solemnly, and Sasuke could see the very serious look on his face. We might play around, joke, and even make light of killing one another, but this is what it's all about. All the training. All the skills. All the experiments we've been doing with chakra and the ninja arts to create keto and deathberry techniques. This is what it will lead to. What it already has involved. We will become strong enough to protect this place. These people. Their lives and their families. Our lives and our bonds together. All the junk we do is fun and always will be fun for us, but this is why I committed myself to it all. Naruto Ino whispered in shock of his determination. Naruto's fist clenched so hard that they could all hear the knuckles crack. I come up here, and despite how most of them may treat me regardless of the way they all look at me, I look down on it all, and I feel the desire rise in me. One that demands I protect them with every fiber of my being. Every man, woman, and child. Until we grow strong, Sasuke found himself saying, those words are nothing but hollow declarations. You're right. Naruto turned to Sasuke, his eyes burning with an intensity the Uchiha had rarely seen in him before. It was beyond a simple will to grow stronger or be noticed. It was something else entirely. Those are merely words right now. But they are the foundation of the divisions. We will build on them. And if I die before I become strong enough, then you all must rise from my ashes and carry on. Make the goal of the divisions possible. You talk like you're dead already, Kiba muttered, but his grin was in good nature. What is it that old man Yama says? Place everything you have on the line and crush the enemy where they stand. Even if they should tear your flesh from your bones, make every last fragment of those bones an iron wall. They must not be permitted to set a single foot within the village of Konoha. All 7 members of the fledgling divisions jumped in surprise, turning their heads to see none other than the elderly third Hokage walking toward them, his expression stern and ruthless. All 7 stood aside and bowed at the waist to Hiruzen Jinrikisai Sarutobi, the third Hokage, their head captain. It would seem that your little group has indeed grown strong and smart. Though you all might not see eye to eye on everything, you share a bond only you can understand. It is invaluable that this bond grows and matures until the divisions as a family. Saratobi said, hands behind his back in a firm manner as he gazed over the village. Life is much too short. Every warrior born of this village lives with many scars, but we are all a family here. And the family will always protect the home. What is the head captain even talking about now? Kiba asked in a mutter to Ino, who bonked him on the head comically. It didn't even hurt that time. Shut up, will ya? He's so cool right now. Ino hissed before turning back to stare at the third Hokage in awe. Unfortunately, he had fallen asleep in that time, standing before the village as he snored lightly with his head leaning to one side. Everyone can just shut up and enjoy the view. Naruto said with a pleasant sigh. Kiba took a moment to scoff but turned his gaze onto the village as asked. The group stayed in silence after that, bathing in the sunlight of the midday sun. Far off to the side, where the path up to the top of the Hokage monument led downward into a small bridge, a pink-haired girl observed the group with an unreadable expression. When and how had they all become such good friends? The pink-haired girl vowed that she would get to the bottom of this mystery. What if Naruto joins the new Gotei 13 Bleach? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.